There's no point in screaming. It took Regulus a long time to learn that. He expects that's Sirius's fault. As long as he was here, there was always the chance that someone might come. No one comes anymore. Regulus is on the ground, feeling as though he's had the skin flayed from his bones. He can't tell where the borders of his body end anymore. He is just pain. No longer stuck behind the lines of his fingers and toes. He has no shape. He is bleeding out.
Up. Get up.
He doesn't move. Doesn't think he can. Can't remember why he ever wanted to.
Regulus, get up.
I can still crucio him on the ground.
That's not the point. Get up!
A boot slides under him and flips him clumsily onto his back.
Fuck.
Regulus blinks his eyes open, finding Lucius hovering over top of him.
Well, look at that. He is alive.
Lucius gives him another kick and Regulus curls onto his side, a pathetic attempt to protect himself.
No.
It's someone else who grabs him under his arms and pulls him up.
No, why?
Rodolphus. That's who picked him up. Gives him a shove and he stumbles, legs shaking as he tries to keep himself standing.
This didn't have to be so difficult, you know.
Lucius grabs his jaw and forces his head up. Being this close to him always makes Regulus's skin crawl. His pulse jackhammering in his chest.
Cast the curse, Regulus. That's all we're asking. According to your parents, you get excellent marks, very bright. This really shouldn't be so hard.
I've tried. I can't.
Lucius's hand starts squeezing.
Try harder.
Lucius lets go, gesturing towards the pen that's been set up in the middle of the garden. There are 2 bunnies in it. Well, there were. One is dead now. Bella got a little overzealous during her demonstration. Not to worry, though. She doesn't need a bunny when she has Regulus.
Go on, Reg.
Narcissa is standing a little further back from the others, watching with a tense look on her face. Regulus swallows, trying to get his eyes to focus before raising his wand. He's not sure what the problem is anymore. At first he didn't want to, but now he'd do just about anything to put an end to this.
Crucio.
Nothing happens. The bunny continues eating grass. Regulus's wand continues to be absolutely useless in his hand. He closes his eyes. Fuck. That's about all he has time to think before there's another.
Crucio!
Suddenly, he's on fire again. When he comes back, he's on the ground. Lucius crouched beside him, elegant brow arched. There's a new expression on his face. Pity, Regulus thinks.
You really aren't doing yourself any favours here.
Lucius reaches out and brushes the hair off of Regulus's forehead. Regulus hates it. Hates that he's touching him. Hates that he's too weak to do anything about it.
Come on.
Lucius grabs him by the arm and pulls him back to his feet. The world swims around Regulus and he has to close his eyes to keep from throwing up.
All right. Maybe that's enough Crucio for today, huh? Why don't you just Avada the thing?
That wasn't the plan. Lucius, the kid's supposed to learn all 3.
When Regulus opens his eyes again, he's met with Lucius's stare, still on him even when he answers.
Yeah, well, if you want him to learn anything, you're going to need to control your wife.
There are spots in Regulus's vision, and he knows he's on the verge of passing out, which he absolutely cannot do. Not here. Not with them.
He needs toughening up.
Bellatrix slinks into view, her dark hair let loose down her back.
He's too soft.
She drags her finger up Regulus's arm as she circles him, hooking her chin over his shoulder and her hands over his chest. He's shaking. He's sure she can feel it. He has to breathe. To remember to breathe. To remember that he can. He has to keep it together, even though every part of him is filled with the desire to fall apart, to slip out of his skin. It's covered in their fingerprints. It's barely even his.
See, little cousin,
He wishes she would just Crucio him again. It would hurt less.
you're going to be king one day.
Bellatrix is all over him, and he has to bite down on his tongue as a sob starts to make its way up his throat. It doesn't matter, he tries to tell himself. They're just hands, just bodies. It doesn't matter. Inhale, exhale.
Little King Black.
She runs a bony knuckle down his face.
So you need to be big and strong. Need to lead the family to greatness. Because if you fail, I will shred you with my teeth. Just like I intend to do to your brother.
And then she bites him, teeth digging into the meat between his neck and his shoulder before pushing him away. He doesn't make any noise, mostly because he can't. You have to be breathing to make noise. He stumbles forward, his body too clumsy to catch itself, so he ends up on his hands and knees, heaving into the dirt, trying desperately not to throw up.
Go on, Regulus. Kill the widow abbot. Maybe next time we'll catch some muggles instead.
He doesn't know if she's joking. He doesn't want to think about it. With a deep breath, he gets back to his feet, not looking at any of them. It's bright. One of the last days of summer. The Scottish countryside stretching out in front of him. His father loves this view. It's half the reason his parents bought the house in the first place. Regulus wipes the sweat out of his eyes on the back of his wrist before lifting his wand again.
Avada Kedavra.
He knows better than to look away, knows they'll only make him do it again. Find some other thing for him to kill. He's not sure why this spell is easier. Why he can manage one, but not the other. Lucius claps him on the back, making Regulus's shoulders tense.
Good boy.
Someone should get the elf. I'm feeling like rabbit for dinner.
Slowly, Regulus slips his wand back into the holster on his forearm, turning around and moving towards the house. He feels weak, lightheaded, covered in sweat and dirt and desperate to just get the fuck away from everyone.
Regulus!
Regulus doesn't stop, doesn't turn around, doesn't look at Narcissa as he pushes past her. He just needs to make it to his room, needs to close the door, needs to lock it.
Same time tomorrow, and you better be able to curse the bloody rabbits.
He slams the back door shut behind him, running up the stairs to his room. His mother isn't here right now, which is a blessing. He can feel this consciousness threatening to slip, pins and needles running up and down his legs and arms, vision blurring at the edges. He just needs to sit down. He just needs to breathe. He just needs no one to fucking touch him ever again. He very nearly cries when he gets to his room, throwing the door closed.
Colloportus.
He collapses onto his bed, still wearing his shoes, still covered in dirt. He needs to shower and change, but right now all he can manage is lying on his side, forcing himself to breathe. Inhale, exhale. Nothing matters. None of it matters. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Stop crying, it doesn't hurt. He curls in tighter. It's the fucking Crucio. It breaks him down inside. All his carefully built walls, all the ways he protects himself, shattered. It's impossible to describe that spell. It's called the torture spell, but that isn't right. When you think torture, you think skin and bones and blood. But Crucio is something else. Something inside you. It unstitches every part of your psyche until your mind is nothing but loose threads. Regulus doesn't even bother checking whose owl it is.
Go away.
Owls, unfortunately, are not particularly compliant creatures. The beast flutters its wings as it flies from the windowsill to the headboard.
I said go away.
Regulus grabs the pillow next to him and hurls it up at the bird. A few moments pass before the owl lands next to him on the mattress. Rolling his eyes, Regulus pulls himself up.
Fine. Give me that stupid letter then.
Holding its head high as though deeply offended, the bird sticks out its legs so Regulus can untie the parchment.
Well,
The bird continues to stand there expectantly.
go on. Not giving you anything.
He swears the bird actually narrows its eyes, giving his hand a vicious peck before flying back out the window.
Fuck.
Regulus brings his hand to his mouth, willing to admit that he probably deserved that. He doesn't need to see the name to know who the letter's from. He'd recognise Evan's messy scrawl anywhere.
Reg. Tonight. Another one. Meet at East Kona at 11:45 p.m. Evs.
Regulus rolls his eyes at the nickname. It's something stupid he started this summer. The only person who calls Evan Rosier Evs is Evan, but he's convinced it'll catch on. The rest of the letter is less amusing. Regulus's eyes scan over it one more time before throwing it on the floor and collapsing back onto his bed. These nighttime excursions are another invention of the summer. Mulciber, Evan, Barty, some of the other boys, have decided they need to get Voldemort's attention. And the best way they can think to do that is by attacking Ministry employees in the dead of the night. Personally, Regulus thinks it's a stupid idea that's only going to put the Ministry on high alert for no reason. But according to someone's brother's cousin's mother, the Dark Lord has heard about it and voiced his approval. So now the boys are determined to get in as many attacks before the summer ends as possible. When Regulus had voiced his negative feelings on the matter, Evan had disagreed.
It's different for us. Not everyone is guaranteed the mark, you know. Some of us have to work for it.
Oh, of course, Regulus had thought bitterly, because I'm just having the time of my fucking life over here. Mostly he opts out, but he can't say no every time. It wouldn't look good. So every once in a while he tags along. Throws a few punches and curses, pretends like he doesn't think it's all ridiculous. Regulus's whole body instantly goes stiff. He lies still for a moment before sliding his wand into his hand.
Fuck off, Lucius.
He pushes himself up off the bed.
It's not Lucius.
Oh.
Narcissa?
She closes the door behind her and then just stands there, the two of them facing one another like they're about to duel. It takes a few seconds before Regulus realises he still has his wand out, and he quickly slides it back into its holster.
Do you need something?
That seems to wake her up.
No, I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I know that things got a little...
He blinks at her. Things got a little... intense? Is that the word she's looking for? Is that what happened? Sometimes Regulus honestly can't tell. Like he's lost his barometer for acceptable behaviour. Maybe he never had one.
Right.
It feels like she's waiting for an answer.
I'm... fine. Thanks.
She nods, walking further into his room, looking around. He can't remember if she's ever been up here before. He likes this room better than his one at Grimmauld Place. But then, he could say that about any room in this house. There's a window that lets in the sun and the moon and the stars. The wallpaper is brighter and softer than everything in London. Regulus sits down on the edge of his bed, watching her walk slowly around, stopping at his desk. There isn't much there, just school books mostly. Eventually she turns back to him, leaning against it.
Why did you think I was Lucius?
Regulus feels his pulse start to pick up, but he keeps his expression neutral.
Figured Bella convinced him to drag me down and finish the lesson.
He wonders if she knows. There's a look in her eyes, just in the corners. But then it's gone. She nods. It's a plausible excuse, one that works for both of them. She goes quiet again, arms crossing over her chest.
We're trying to get pregnant.
She's looking at him again, right at him.
Oh.
He can't quite pass through all the complicated things that sentence drags up in him. Of course he knew that they would have children. Honestly, he's surprised they haven't already. The Malfoys, the Blacks, they need heirs. Still, the idea of Lucius having a child, a son. Regulus feels his nails start to dig into the mattress beneath him.
We've started to see a healer to figure out why it's taking so long, to see what we can do to help move things along.
Right.
Regulus fidgets uncomfortably, finding her gaze increasingly difficult to hold.
I worry about having a baby in the middle of all this, but
Duty calls.
She shoots him a rueful smile.
indeed.
They lapse back into silence and Regulus finds himself wondering what the hell she's doing up here. Then has the horrible thought that maybe she's trying to test out her mothering on him.
You too. How did that happen?
Narcissa arches her brow, the familiar smirk tugging at her mouth, the one that is softer and kinder than her sister's.
You know how it happened. The same way it always happens.
Regulus just shakes his head.
Romance isn't really my area of expertise.
Yes, I've noticed.
Oh, he thinks. Great. They've been talking about me.
Not that there's much romance involved in any of this.
Narcissa goes on, dimming slightly.
No.
He wishes that she would stop dyeing her hair. He likes it better as it is naturally. Light brown. It suits her. The blonde is too harsh. She gives him another half-smile.
No. My mother chose him. Well, and his mother chose me, I suppose.
Regulus nods, memories coming vaguely back to him.
I remember. Weren't you dating someone else?
Her eyes flicker, but her expression remains in place.
Matthew.
It hangs between them, big with all she doesn't say. All Regulus doesn't need her to. He knows what it's like to hold on to a name like it's the hand pulling you out of the deep. The only thing keeping you from going under.
Your mother didn't choose him then?
No, well, he was a half-blood, so...
How scandalous.
Indeed.
Her gaze grows distant for a moment, unfocused, no doubt disappearing to somewhere else.
We all have our childish indiscretions. Things we have to give up.
Regulus very forcibly keeps his thoughts from wandering to where, of course, they want to go. To that smile, that laugh, those hands that seem to be the only ones that don't pull him apart.
Except for your sister. Andromeda, right? She kept her childish indiscretion.
Narcissa's eyes instantly grow sharp.
I'd leave that alone if I were you, Reg.
Right. Of course.
Sure, Sissy.
She's not some hero. Not someone with anything but your pity.
Regulus has the feeling Narcissa has said those words a few times before, mostly to herself.
Like Sirius.
Exactly.
Except... Are we?
Narcissa's brow furrows.
What do you mean?
Are we worth anything but pity?
She stares back at him, eyes wide, betraying all that doubt, all that pain, all that love. Regulus knows how that feels. Knows it exactly.
Why did you come up here, Narcissa?
Why did you think I was Lucius?
Ah, so she does know. He swallows the embarrassment, the fear, the disappointment. He'd really thought if there was anyone here who would have helped him.
We all have our childish indiscretions. Right?
He sees that land and then quickly watches her eyes shutter. Watches her expression close down completely. She gives him a sharp nod.
Right. Well, I'll let you rest.
She starts towards the door, but for some reason Regulus can't quite let it go.
You're still going to do it then? Still going to let that man near a child?
She pauses, hand on the doorframe.
Don't be dramatic, Regulus.
She sounds so much like his mother that he can't help but wince.
You're hardly a child. And Lucius would never do anything to compromise his heir.
Compromise. That word hits somewhere deep. He nearly doubles over. Is that what I am? He wonders. Compromised?
Well, as long as you're sure.
I won't let anything happen to my child.
Do you think all mothers say that?
She gazes back over her shoulder.
How many of them end up being liars, I wonder.
Surprisingly, she doesn't answer. When Regulus goes down to his father's room the next morning, he isn't there. He rubs a hand across his face.
Crazy loon.
He moves quickly down the stairs and out into the garden. They have a garden at Grimmauld Place too, but it's narrow and overcrowded, and the wards don't let you get far. Here, they're surrounded by nothing for miles. Just wide open space. Right at the back of the house there are intricately woven flower beds and stone paths. The type of thing you'd expect from a palace or Victorian mansion. His father did it all before he got sick.
Papa,
He finds his father staring at a bush of purple hyacinth.
how many times do I have to tell you? You can't just go wandering off.
You make me sound like a mischievous puppy.
Orion's long hair is pulled back in a bun, the streaks of grey standing out more starkly in the morning sun. He pulls out his wand and waves it at the flowers, sending the dead blossoms tumbling to the ground.
Papa!
Regulus makes a grab for the wand, ripping it out of his hand.
Merlin, what the hell are you doing?
Orion rolls his eyes.
Mon petit, c'est juste un peu de magie.
No magic. You're not supposed to be doing any magic. Especially not for something as stupid as this.
Regulus gestures dismissively at the bush, bringing a frown to his father's face.
My garden is not stupid.
Now it's Regulus's turn to roll his eyes.
That's not what I meant.
Non?
His father's eyebrows are arched.
You know I love your garden.
Orion smiles.
Did you see the vegetable patch? Those tomatoes? Elles ont l'air bonnes, non?
Regulus tries and fails to hold back his own smile.
Yes, I saw them. Very impressive.
Bien alors, we can both agree that this is not a waste of magic then.
Orion holds out his hand to Regulus, looking at him expectantly.
We can hire gardeners. Or we can ask Creature to do it. Or...
Creature wouldn't know the difference between a peony and a ranunculus if they were right in front of him. And you know how your maman feels about strangers.
I don't know, Regulus almost says. There seem to be more than a few strangers running through this house recently. Though it's not as bad as it was at Grimmauld. Before they'd left, that place had felt like King's Cross. People in and out, with nervous eyes and heavy cloaks.
then let me do it.
Regulus still isn't relinquishing his father's wand.
I am not an invalid, Regulus.
You are, actually.
You might be right.
His father wipes a hand across his forehead, catching beads of sweat.
But surely I can still be allowed to have a little fun,
It's not really that hot. The sun is bright and there are no clouds in the sky, but still, he shouldn't be sweating.
Are you running a fever?
Regulus steps forward to feel his father's face.
Mon cœur, arrête. I'm fine. Stop fussing.
Orion bats Regulus's hand away, taking a step back.
You can't act like this. I'm not always here to... You have to take care of yourself.
He sees the softening in his father's eyes.
Regulus, I'm dying.
We're all dying.
Regulus's hand curls too tightly around his father's wand. His father smiles.
Yes, well, I'm dying a little bit quicker than the rest of you.
You don't know that.
Regulus,
Stop saying my name like that.
His father quirks his brow.
like what?
Like I'm a child.
Ah,
Orion opens his palms.
I'm afraid to me you always will be.
Then why are you never there when I need you? He knows it's a stupid thought to have. That his father is sick. That he's too weak to do anything, and Regulus would never want him to hurt himself trying. That you can't expect other people to fight for you. To protect you. That's always been Regulus's problem. He's always needed a hero.
Papa, please.
His father gives him a sad smile before reaching out. This time not for his wand. He pulls Regulus into him, and Reg goes willingly, even though the feeling of being held makes his skin crawl.
There are things that can't be changed, mon petit. Things we just have to accept.
Regulus thinks about Narcissa, about himself. The Black family motto ought to be just accept it.
I want you to know
His father pulls back as he brings his hands to gently hold Regulus's face.
that I am so proud of you. I know how hard it's been since your brother left, all the pressure you've had placed on your shoulders, but you've handled it beautifully, Regulus.
He looks up at his father, eyes searching, wondering if he knows about all of it. About what happens in this garden when he's up in his room and the others come over. Wonders if that's what he's proud of. Before he can stop himself, his eyes go to the mark on his father's forearm. It's new, the ink still jet black, standing out starkly against his skin. His father drops his hands to Regulus's shoulders and squeezes.
You're going to be brilliant, Regulus. You needn't worry.
Regulus looks up and knows that his father has caught him staring.
This is your birthright. It's in your blood.
What is? He doesn't ask. Which part? Because none of it ever seems to come naturally to him. But then, nothing ever seems to come naturally to Regulus. Not like it does to Sirius. Eventually, his father smiles.
Let's make a deal, I'll promise to sit here like a good little boy and do no magic. If you go, get your broom and let me watch you fly, yes?
I don't know why you like watching me fly so much. It's always the same.
He reluctantly hands his father back his wand, the older man nodding his thanks as he slips the slender stick into the pocket of his robes.
Ah, that is because you have never had the pleasure of seeing yourself fly.
His father's eyes sparkle.
It is like listening to a symphony.
Regulus rolls his eyes.
Yes, okay, I'm getting my broom. No more comparing me to symphonies, please.
I only tell you the truth, mon cœur.
Regulus waves him off as he heads towards the shed. My heart. That's what his father calls him. My heart. Don't put your faith in me, he wants to tell him. I'm not the son worth betting on.
Really, Regulus?
He blinks up at Lucius, on his back again, sun in his eyes. The older man offers Regulus his hand, but he doesn't take it, pushing himself onto his knees and then, eventually, to his feet. They've limited Bellatrix to strictly forgivable curses today.
Suit yourself.
This is starting to get pathetic, Little Black.
Rodolphus pushes himself off the back wall.
What good are you if you can't even stomach this, huh?
He gestures at the cat they've trapped. Why did it have to be a cat, Reg thinks dully. I like cats. Why couldn't it be a rat, or a snake, or a possum?
Oi, back off him.
Narcissa steps in, though Regulus honestly couldn't tell you why.
He can brew more potions than you can name, and he's managed everything else you've thrown at him.
That's not technically true. He couldn't manage the Patronus. Rodolphus turns his skin-crawling leer on her.
Yes, he's a pretty little swat. But none of that matters if he chokes when he needs to actually point his wand at someone.
Mostly, Regulus doesn't let himself think about what they're practicing for. He doesn't let himself think about most of what's happened this summer. Easier that way. To just let it go.
He won't choke.
Even in the August heat, his mother's voice still sends a chill down his spine. They all turn towards the house where Walburga stands inside the door. Dressed in black, eyes intently focused on her son.
Will you, Regulus?
It feels like everything has suddenly gone still. The wind, the tree branches, the birds overhead. Nothing moves. Nothing breathes. Nothing makes a sound.
No, Maman.
She gives him a sharp nod, taking a step forward, arms crossing over her chest.
Go on then. Show them.
Fuck. His hand is sweaty as he adjusts his grip on his wand, turning back to the cat, feeling each and every set of eyes on him. Bellatrix is frightening in her absolute disregard for everything and everyone. But his mother is scary in another way. The way that her hatred can zero in and focus itself on just you. He swallows, trying to put everything away in boxes and shove it all down. To not think about the cat as a cat, or an animal, or a living being, but an it. Just an it. The first time he ever saw someone crucioed, it was Sirius. The summer before he ran away. Regulus had felt many things about his mother before that point. Anger, fear, love. But that day, that was the first day he had really hated her.
Regulus?
He exhales, pulling on that memory, on that hatred, letting every horrible feeling fill him up. It's for his own good, his mother had said, staring at her eldest son while he writhed on the floor in agony. For his own good.
Crucio.
It's work not to be sick, not to drop his wand. He wonders if this is what he looks like to them, if this is how they feel when they watch. Or maybe they feel nothing at all. He waits for someone to tell him to stop, but no one does. Eventually he pulls back, shaking and out of breath. He knows that feeling, the way the burn sits in your bones afterwards, in your head.
Finally.
Regulus stares at some indistinct point in the distance, focusing on his breathing, on not falling to the ground. It doesn't feel like celebrating.
Excellent.
She waits until Regulus's eyes meet hers.
He'll be here on Sunday.
That's it. That's all she says. She's back inside the house before he can even blink.
Oh. Someone just need their mummy?
Regulus doesn't bother responding. Doesn't know how. Honestly, he feels like he might be sick. Without thinking, he starts moving. He thinks Narcissa reaches for him, but he keeps going. He doesn't make it far. Just to the other side of the house, before his hands are on his knees and he's vomiting up the entire contents of his stomach. He falls against the wall, wiping his mouth on the back of his hand as he slides down to the ground. Sunday. She said he'd be here on Sunday. A shiver runs through Regulus. There's no question who he is.
Wow.
Regulus looks up to see an amused Lucius leaning against the wall next to him.
You really did throw up. I wasn't sure if you actually would.
Regulus gives him a flat look before dropping his head down onto his knees.
Go away.
He's not able to muster anything more threatening.
You used to be so much more agreeable.
That's such a horrible, fucked up thing to say. It's too hot. Too hot for all of this.
Are you really this awful?
Regulus lifts his head just enough.
Or is it some kind of act?
Am I your villain, Regulus?
No,
Not even close.
but you are a fucking nightmare.
I can accept that.
Regulus wants to punch him. He doesn't. Can't. Hasn't the energy. The courage. But Christ, does he want to.
So, how's the boy then?
Regulus stiffens, looking over Lucius's shoulder, half expecting Bellatrix or his mother to appear. He doesn't know which would be worse. Lucius smirks.
I've already cast a privacy charm.
He waves his hand dismissively at the air. Regulus does not find that at all comforting, and it must show on his face because the older man rolls his eyes.
Oh, stand down. I'm not about to do anything out here, am I?
This, Regulus thinks, this right here is why I'm so fucked up. That he can talk about it like it's nothing. Normal. Casual. Like it hasn't left holes in my skin.
There's no boy. Go away.
Nah, I don't buy it. Big attitude change like this. Must be a boy. Could be a girl. But I don't expect you're quite lucky enough to swing both ways.
Regulus doesn't say anything, nails digging into his knees. Apparently Lucius takes this as an invitation to keep talking because he steps forward and crouches down next to him.
He's not one of ours, I bet. That's why you've been so resistant lately. I'm surprised it's lasted this long, though I can't imagine it'll go on much longer. Not once you have the mark. Those lot are too self-righteous to let something like that slide. Hypocrites.
Hypocrites.
Regulus doesn't know why he asks. Lucius shrugs.
They're fighting for their power, like I'm fighting for mine. Don't see where they got off feeling so damn morally righteous.
Regulus isn't even sure where to start with that.
Your power. Or the Dark Lord's.
Lucius rolls his eyes.
Oh, like they're not fighting for Dumbledore. One mad old man is no better than the next.
Regulus isn't sure if that's true, though he personally has never much cared for Dumbledore. Something about the way his smile doesn't reach his eyes.
Last I checked, Dumbledore isn't branding his followers.
Oh, come now, Regulus.
Lucius pulls back his sleeve, the snake on his arm squirming in the sunlight.
Surely you're not afraid of a little ink.
Regulus looks down at it, and then away.
I'm not scared.
He means it. He isn't.
I'm just so fucking tired of not having any control.
It's proof of how lonely he's been that he's having this conversation with Lucius Malfoy at all. The older man leans in close and Regulus tries and fails not to flinch.
What do you think we're fighting for?
Lucius lingers there for a moment before pulling away.
We have the power. They want the power. We crush them. We reign supreme again. It's really all very simple.
I don't want power.
He doesn't have to look at Lucius to know he's rolling his eyes.
Power, control, it's all the same.
Regulus's head leans back against the wall, looking up at the dimming sky.
I don't think that's how they see it. This fight. I don't think they see it as being about power.
Well, then they're idiots. Everything is about power. You think Dumbledore aligned himself with the Mudbloods out of the goodness of his heart? Please, he saw an opportunity and he took it.
Regulus doesn't answer, closing his eyes and trying to will his exhausted body to stand. Hopefully they can stop these lessons. He's managed all three Unforgivables. Surely they can leave him alone now?
You think you'll get control on the other side?
Again, Regulus doesn't answer. He knows a trap when he hears one.
Dumbledore will turn you into his little creature. Have you do all his spying for him, and then toss you aside. I bet you 1,000 galleons that's what'll happen to your brother. At least with us, you have value. Have something that can't be taken from you. Blood.
In Regulus's personal opinion, his blood has never done very much for him. But he doesn't bother voicing that thought either.
You know, I'd be careful if I were you. Wouldn't want Bellatrix to find out about your little boy toy.
Regulus's eyes fly open as his head snaps towards Lucius.
Is that a threat?
Lucius clutches dramatically at his chest.
Regulus, you wound me. It's merely some helpful advice. Because if she finds out what you've been doing, and, God forbid, with whom, that poor boy is going to find himself dismembered.
Despite his best efforts to stay calm, Regulus can feel his heart racing in his chest.
I told you. There is no boy.
Sure. Tell me, how good are you at occlumency again? Because I reckon she could crack you open after a few rounds of Crucio.
Fuck.
Lucius.
Oh, listen to that. Do you hear it? You've gone all soft, and after being so rude to me.
Regulus grits his teeth and tries to keep some semblance of control.
Please.
The older man smiles.
I do love hearing that word out of your mouth.
Lucius walks forward, and Regulus has to force himself to stay still, to not pull his wand out or run, especially when Lucius reaches out to run a hand through his curls.
You know...
His hand slides down Regulus's jaw, thumb running over his lower lip. The fear and anxiety building inside him are almost unbearable. There are no words to describe this feeling. Like he's going to burst open. Spill out of his skin.
You're so much prettier when you're quiet.
Regulus doesn't breathe again until Lucius steps back. Lucius must notice.
You see, Regulus? Everything is about power.
There are dots in Regulus's vision. Memories of hands and weight and muffled sobs clawing at his throat. It takes him a long time to realise that Lucius is gone. He manages to make it into town on Saturday. He goes once a week. To get away. To visit the gallery. To think about all the things he's not supposed to think about. To read James's letters. He sits on a park bench, fingers running over the envelopes in his hands. He always brings them all with him, afraid to leave them behind. Desperate to read them again. There's only one left unopened. The rest of them scarred with creases and smudge marks from all the times he's pulled them out. All the times he's told himself just once more. He slides his finger under the sealed envelope, pulling out the fresh pages and getting the same fluttering in his stomach as he does every time. It's the kind of feeling that makes him do stupid things like try and send letters through the Muggle post. He unfolds the pages.
Dear Greg.
The old woman on the bench across from him jumps. Sorry, he mouths at her. But honestly, Greg? Greg, James? Somehow he manages to keep reading.
We did it. We're almost there. 2 more days and we'll be back. Full disclosure, I am probably going to be a little much. I can already feel it. I'm going to miss you like mad, Regulus. I always miss you. So listen, this is what I've been thinking about today. You and me in the pros. It's basically guaranteed to happen, so it's barely even a daydream. Does that sound obnoxious? Whatever, it's true. I can't decide which I like better, us on the same team, because honestly, we'd be unstoppable, or us on opposing teams, because maybe that sexual tension, killer. Either way, we'd be such a power couple. They'd make like posters and shit with our faces on them.
Oh my god, James.
He smiles despite himself.
We could put them up in our house. Yes, we have a house. We're international Quidditch stars, so it's probably like a super amazing house too. We'd both make it on the national team, obviously, and go off and win the Quidditch World Cup for England. Then retire at 35 and fuck off to a beach somewhere. I'm telling you, Reg, the two of us together will conquer the world.
Regulus feels his heart squeezed too tight.
See, these are the things I think about. Sometimes I wonder if, if you think maybe this is just me messing around or something. But it isn't. When I think about my future, I think about you. Us. It feels right, Reg. I don't know how to make you see that. I know it's not right now, but it will be. We can get there. We can get anywhere. Anyway, I'll be waiting for you in 2 days in our room. Even if it's too much, if you can't come, it's alright. Just want you to know that I'll be there if you need me. I'll always be there. Love you, James.
He hates him. Hates him. Hates him. He blinks the tears out of his eyes while thinking about how much he hates James Potter. It feels like this every time. Like breaking his own heart. But then, he supposes that's what this whole thing has been. Seeing the pain and heading straight for it. Pretending he can be someone else. Someone better. Someone who deserves to be loved the way James loves. He rereads the letter just to torture himself. Just to hear it again. He's never thought about his future. Never been able to picture it. But the image James paints is beautiful. Not the Quidditch or the fame, but the two of them. Together. Living in a house. Our house, James had called it. It was selfish of Regulus to let this happen, to let it go on, to let James get sucked in. Selfish and dangerous, because Lucius is right. If they find out, his mother, Bella, they'll kill James. Horribly, painfully, slowly. For the dishonour, for the shame of it. They'll make it their personal fucking mission. Taking in Sirius was bad enough, but this? So we're agreed, says the voice in his head. We stop this now. We end it. We keep him safe. And it sounds good. It sounds right. The right thing to do. But it's immediately followed by another voice. Weak and whiny. I can't. I can't. I can't. You can. I need him. Enough to risk his life. Because if he's dead, he can't have him anyway.
Fuck.
Regulus presses the heels of his hands into his eyes. He's been having the same conversation with himself all summer. Round and round in circles it goes. Of course, that was before Lucius explicitly threatened him. Before he knew for sure that he was getting the mark. He could refuse. Yeah, that'll go over well. What's the worst they can do? Kill me. Would that be so bad? No. Probably not. But he doesn't think he'll do it anyway. Dying takes courage. The brave and the bold die. The cowardly survive. So we run away. Where? To James's? No. His mother could afford to lose one son, after all. She had a spare. And Sirius had always been too much trouble. But both? Walburga would kill everyone in that fucking house before she let Regulus go. You have to end it. You have to keep him safe. I can't. I can't. I can't. Regulus slips James's letter back into its envelope and gets to his feet. It's a short walk to the gallery from here, and the sun has finally been dimmed by the clouds in the encroaching autumn. So he starts moving, hands in his pockets, thoughts still running in circles. I can't. I can't. I can't. It's busy today, the gallery. It's a Saturday, and with the weather, Regulus supposes it's to be expected. There's no entrance fee, but they do take donations, so Regulus always makes sure to bring Muggle money to slip into the little plastic box by the entrance. Hands in his pockets, he wanders through the big rooms with their towering ceilings and beautiful paintings. He pretends to meander, to be purposeless, with no destination, all the while moving very consciously in the direction of the one painting he wants desperately to see. The one he always wants to see. He can never remember why he fell in love with it in the first place. Just that after he saw it, he couldn't look away. Couldn't stop coming back. Wondering what had happened. Wondering who they were. Eventually, he'd asked one of the tour guides. She'd said a lot of things that he hadn't understood. Words he'd never heard. People. Places. So he'd asked her to write it down. Then he'd gone to the Muggle library.
I love this one.
He blinks, looking beside him to see a lanky girl in mustard yellow bell-bottoms and long, dark braids.
Sorry?
Is the only word he seems to think of. He's not sure if he means it as a question or a statement.
You know what I think it is?
Regulus realises she's chewing gum.
Are you allowed gum in here?
She looks over at him for the first time, smiling.
Why? You gonna tell on me, pretty boy?
He honestly has no idea what's going on right now.
No.
She nods, satisfied, before turning back to the painting.
See, thing is, you think the tragedy is Patroclus, but it isn't.
Regulus finds himself looking at the painting too. The pale figure in Achilles' arms. the crowd of mourners around him.
I mean, look at his face, right? Totally peaceful.
He's dead.
She rolls her eyes.
Yes, but that's the point, isn't it?
Which could mean so many things that Regulus isn't sure where to go with it.
The real tragedy is Achilles.
She points at the pained face in the centre.
The people who get left behind. That's what hurts the most. That's what makes this painting so good.
Regulus lets his eyes drag between the two faces. The two men who had loved so fiercely, who made it so far.
That isn't the tragedy.
Regulus brings her dark eyes back to him.
No.
He shakes his head.
The tragedy is that Achilles could have stopped it. Instead, he lets Patroclus die because he isn't brave enough to face his own fate. The fate he chose when he sailed for Troy. The fate he tries to use Agamemnon to chicken out at the last minute. Achilles is the death of Patroclus, not Hector. That's the tragedy.
Agamemnon sucks, though. And besides, Achilles was defending his honour.
Regulus is silent for a moment, staring at the broken figures in front of him.
If he'd actually loved him, he would have put the armor on himself.
He can feel her watching him.
You are a very intense guy.
He looks back at her.
And you're very blunt.
True.
She holds out her hand.
I'm Mary Beth.
At first he's not sure what she's doing, but then his brain wakes up.
Oh. Regulus.
They shake.
Regulus?
She arches her brow.
That's a wicked name.
Thanks. Mary Beth is also nice?
Very convincing.
Sorry. I'm not good at
Compliments?
people.
Ah.
She nods wisely.
Well, your taste in art definitely doesn't scream fun and approachable, that's for sure.
Regulus smiles a little despite himself.
I see you here a lot.
When Regulus raises his brow, she explains.
My mum works here. So I end up spending a lot of time here too.
Ah, I guess that makes sense.
Regulus, once again, finds himself with no idea what else to say. How to carry on basic conversation. No one's ever talked to him here before.
This is the part where you explain why you're here so much.
Her mouth twitches like she's trying not to smile. Regulus just blinks back at her. Then he looks back at the painting in front of them.
Really? Just this one painting? Just 'cause you...
Like it?
He honestly hasn't got a better reason for her.
Fair enough, I guess.
Both of them are staring forwards.
Well, I just thought I'd introduce myself. Put in my 2 cents about your little obsession.
She nods towards the painting.
It was nice to meet you. Regulus.
There's a look in her eyes, like she's smiling without using her mouth. Flirting? His brain surprised. She's flirting with you.
Maybe I'll see you around, huh?
She walks away backwards.
Convince you to look at something else for a change?
She winks, before turning around and continuing on her way. He stares after her, thinking about how she has no idea what's happening in the wizarding world. No idea what's coming. That he could kill her with the flick of his wand, and at this point probably wouldn't even get in trouble for it. The Death Eaters have the Ministry under such tight control. He thinks about the person Mary Beth must think that he is. To look at him like that. To wink at him. How nice it would be to be that boy. He exhales, shoving his hands in his pockets and turning away, heading for the exit. Mary Beth never does see him again. He's seen Voldemort before, not up close, but he has seen him. It was at Grimmauld Place. His mother had offered it up for some meeting. Regulus had waited on the stairs, just to see who everyone kept whispering about. The man who had the wizarding world in such an uproar. Truthfully, he'd been a little disappointed. Voldemort was just a man, middle-aged, tall, with almost translucently pale skin, exaggerated by his dark hair and dark eyes. He couldn't see anything particularly frightening about him, or inspiring. He just was. and then his gaze had found Regulus on the landing. Regulus had wondered, at the time, if it was a spell. Silent, wandless, but a spell. Because the cold feeling that had rushed along his bones then had been so startling he'd nearly fallen down the stairs. He knew now, standing in front of Voldemort properly, that it hadn't been. They say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Well, Regulus doesn't know what it is he's looking into, but it doesn't feel like a soul. Doesn't feel alive at all. They're in the dining room. It's smaller than the one at Grimmauld Place, homier, making this all feel that much more absurd, that much harder to believe. It's dark out. The candle's the only light in the room, illuminating the masked faces that line the walls. Lucius is here, so are Bella and Rodolphus, his mother and father, and others. Some people he's known his whole life, some people he's never met before. Not that he can tell them apart now. Voldemort stands at the head of the table, in dark robes, Regulus in front of him, several inches shorter and feeling like a child. The man smiles. It's not a pleasant expression.
Regulus Arcturus Black.
The sound of his voice causes the hair to stand up on the back of his neck. Voldemort's head twitches to the side, like a snake sizing up its prey. Regulus is used to it. He's been looked at like that before.
My lord.
Your family has been a great source of support for me during these long years. It is their wish for you to receive this honor, to join us here, and out of my gratitude to them, I have agreed. But I need you to understand what it means to bear my mark, to bind your life to mine. We will become one, you and I. You will feel me when I need you, when I call, when I am strong and when I am weak. This is not empty symbolism. It connects us.
Another smile. This man is all teeth. Regulus takes it back. Not like a snake. Like a wolf.
We are a family. You are young, so I will give you the mercy of reconsidering. If you do not feel you can give yourself to me as you must, as this demands, as your parents have.
His dark eyes take hold of Regulus and keep him still, unable to move, to think, to see anything but him.
You have a choice.
Like two empty pits in his face, dark and swelling, and pulling Regulus under, drowning him.
Will you choose us?
Achilles should have put the armor on himself.
You're beautiful.
He should have accepted that some things can't be changed. Some endings can't be rewritten.
Okay, Rich, yeah, I'm yours. You're mine too.
He should have fallen on his sword before he let Patroclus go out there, knowing how dangerous it was, knowing what could happen.
I love you.
Say it again.
He told James. Told him ages ago that he wasn't a very good person. Told him over and over again that he wouldn't be able to do the right thing. To stop this. To end this. He still can't.
I love you, Regulus.
He never should have been with James in the first place. And not even because of his family, because of the politics, but because of who Regulus is. Mangled and damaged and compromised. Maybe if it had happened earlier, if he had known James before he let his family twist him up.
I just want you to know that I'll be there if you need me. I'll always be there.
Regulus had let himself pretend that things could be different. But he won't do that anymore. This is who he is. This is who he was always going to be, and he won't get James killed trying to fight fate. He'll only lose. They always lose. He swallows, still holding Voldemort's stare, unwavering.
I choose you.
too hot for the jumper he's wearing. He keeps pulling at it, fabric itchy against his sweaty skin, making it impossible to ignore. He'd take it off, but he needs something with sleeves. There's already an annoying voice in his head saying it's not enough, that somehow people will know, that his sleeve will ride up, that it'll bleed through the fabric, slither down his arm.
Blimey, you look miserable.
Evan is leaning against the pillar next to him, waiting for the train to arrive. He's got a bag of candied popcorn in his hands that he insists on eating by throwing pieces in the air and catching them with his mouth. He keeps looking over at the group of fourth-year girls to the left of them to see if they're watching. They are not.
I thought that was my role.
Regulus's eyes are lazily scanning the platform.
I'm the miserable one. You're the optimist.
What does that make Barty?
You figure out what Barty is. You let me know.
Evan's laugh makes him sound like a perpetual 12-year-old.
Honestly, I can't believe you came back. If I were you, I'd be so fucking out of here.
His mother had tried to stop him, but eventually he'd managed to convince her that there was still some value in his education, even if it was just because it kept him closer to Dumbledore, behind enemy lines, collecting information, etc., etc.
Surprisingly enough, I do like to be educated.
That's why you're so miserable.
Regulus can help the smirk that pulls at his mouth.
Probably.
I'm telling you, Reg, the less you know, the better life is.
Ah, the Evan Rosier life motto. When in doubt, be a fucking idiot.
They catch the attention of the aforementioned fourth-year girls. Regulus imagines it's because of the noise and not some suddenly materializing desire, but Evan appears to be of a different opinion.
Hey, hold this, will you?
Evan smacks his popcorn into the middle of Regulus's chest.
Merlin, Evan, leave it.
But it's no use. His friend is already walking away, an overly exaggerated swagger in his step. Regulus rolls his eyes, leaning back against the pillar and glaring down at the popcorn in his hands. It's an unappealing blue colour that Regulus can't quite believe is edible. His arm twinges. He's pretty sure it's just in his head. Or at least that's what he tells himself. Just like he tells himself that nothing is trapped under his skin. Nothing is squirming below the surface, trying to get out, however much it might feel like it. He curls and flexes his fingers like that will help, trying to think about something else.
Hey.
Regulus jumps, which makes him drop Evan's disgusting popcorn on the floor. Makes his pulse race. He turns around to find James behind him, sheepish smile on his face, eyes bright. Don't look at me like that, Regulus wants to tell him. You don't know what I've done. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He'd meant to be more prepared than this. Meant to wrap himself in an armour of apathy and disdain. He hadn't expected James to just walk up to him and... But of course, he should have. It's so like him. Regulus has been quiet for too long, and he can see the worry start to crease James's brow. He should let it. He should turn around and walk away. He's usually better at this, at being an arsehole.
Where are they?
James doesn't seem to need clarification to know he's talking about the other marauders, gesturing over his shoulder.
Just there. I can't stay long, but I saw you and I just...
There's that smile again, and Regulus wonders if it's too late to cut his arm off. Not that it would make a difference.
What the hell, Reg? I told you to hold my popcorn, not feed it to the bloody birds.
Regulus very briefly closes his eyes. Fuck. James has already gone stiff. Evan coming to an abrupt stop as he realises who Regulus is talking to. There's a moment of surprise before an unsettling smile stretches across his face.
Well, look who it is. You just can't leave my mate here alone, can you?
Drop it, Evan.
Regulus tries to nudge him away, but he isn't having it, staring at James like someone's just told him it's Christmas morning, which can't be good.
Are you referring to the time I kicked your ass?
James has a cocky smile spreading across his face, which is doing unhelpful things to Regulus's chest.
Because that's one of my fondest memories.
Evan's eyes go sharp.
How's your dad, Potter?
The change is so quick it's almost frightening. The mocking humour drains from James's face, replaced by an anger that burns, and Regulus can't help feeling like he's missed something.
Because the last time I saw him...
Evan has absolutely no self-preservation instinct to speak of.
He was in the right state. Could barely walk.
And then several things click into place. Like the fact that Evan, just be a fucking idiot Rosier, spent his summer attacking Ministry employees. And that Fleamont Potter is, in fact, a Ministry employee.
I'm going to destroy you.
Let's hope you throw a better punch than your dad, yeah?
Things move quickly then. Both James and Evan step forward, Regulus moving between them, one arm wrapping around Evans's chest and hauling him backwards, bracing for the impact of James's fist, which had already been pulled back. It doesn't come, though.
Whoa, mate, hold on.
You piece of shit! You spineless, pathetic
Come and get me,
fucking
Potter!
wanker!
Come and get me and we'll see if you cry just like your daddy!
Regulus slams Evan against the pillar behind them, able to turn just enough to see Sirius in a similar position with James. Their eyes meet.
Reg?
Sirius?
We really have to stop meeting like this.
Regulus shoves Evan back again as he makes another attempt to break free.
I'll have my people owl your people.
You know people? I'm shocked.
It almost feels natural, this back and forth. And for a minute, Regulus can pretend that they're on the same side, that they don't hate each other. That is, until Evan's hand grabs hold of his left arm and everything goes white. Pain searing through him as he drops to his hands and knees. That definitely wasn't in his head.
Fuck, Reg, I'm sorry.
Regulus's skin is burning hot, covered in sweat. He tries to breathe through it. It's not the worst pain he's ever felt. It just caught him off guard. It will fade, his father had told him before he left. He'd been holding Regulus's arm out in front of him, running a gentle hand over the fresh mark. Regulus hadn't known if it was the ink or the pain his father was talking about.
What the fuck did you do to him?
Regulus opens his eyes, not realizing he closed them in the first place.
Reg?
Regulus looks over to see Evan crouched beside him, ignoring James completely. Regulus shakes his head.
I'm fine. It's fine.
Something happened to your arm, Reg.
That sends fear dripping down Regulus's spine. Of course, Sirius would notice. He makes sure to keep his expression neutral when he turns back to his brother.
Just Evan's claw-like nails. You're lucky he didn't get a shot of your face, Potter. Your fans would never have recovered.
James looks like he can't decide whether to be worried or peeved. Eyes bouncing back and forth between Regulus and Evan. But Sirius doesn't take his eyes off of Regulus. Regulus can practically feel him trying to pick him apart, and he has to resist the urge to pull down on his sleeve.
Come on.
Sirius finally looks away, shoving James back in the direction they came from.
Let's go, Prongs. They're not worth it.
James resists for about a second, sending Regulus one last look before reluctantly allowing Sirius to haul him away.
Yeah, you better.
Evan, shut the fuck up.
Regulus pushes himself back to his feet. Evan gapes at him.
Can't believe you went after Fleamont Potter. Do you have any idea how important he is?
Some idea.
And you just thought you'd rub it in his son's face, did you? You could be sent to Azkaban for the rest of your fucking life.
Says the bloke with the dark mark on his arm.
Regulus freezes for a second. Just a second. Before shoving Evan into the pillar again. Just because it feels good.
Fine, fuck it. Go ahead. In fact, while you're at it, why don't you just pop up to Dumbledore's office and let him know what you've been up to all summer, huh?
Yes, alright, I get it. You've made your point. But it's not as though Potter has any proof, does he? Besides, everyone knows Azkaban is ours these days.
Regulus feels something in his stomach squirm, but he pushes it down. So what if the Death Eaters have control of Azkaban? Of the Ministry? He always knew this was how it was going to be. Always knew they would win. There's no point in caring about something that's inevitable. His eyes trail momentarily to the spot where Sirius and James disappeared, and he wonders if they know. If they have any idea how lost their cause is.
Reg?
Regulus looks up at the sound of his name, and something about Evan's expression tells him he's said it a few times.
I really am sorry about...
He looks pointedly at Regulus's left arm.
Yeah, Evan. No.
Regulus isn't sure why he thought he could talk any sense into Evan. He was stupid and reckless when they were kids, and he's stupid and reckless now.
Come on, let's go find Barty. make sure we get a compartment together.
Then you have to go to the SWAT meeting.
Oh, fuck. I forgot about that.
He was somewhat shocked to find a prefect badge in his school letter this summer. He's still not convinced it wasn't a mistake.
You and Snape will have a blast, I'm sure.
We always do.
He watches the train pull into the station, all noise and smoke. Regulus follows the voice to a particularly tiny-looking first year, eyes wide, luggage nearly the same size as her. As hard as he tries, he can't remember being that young. I mean, he can remember being 11, but not like that. Not the type to light up at the sight of a train. What he does remember is thinking, what if it crashes? What if there aren't enough seats for everyone? What if I get lost? Sirius, slow down. Wait for me. Wait for me. Wait. He doesn't recognize the little girl's mother. Not a pureblood, then. Go back, he wants to tell her. It isn't what you think. This world is full of wolves.
Oh, look.
Evan elbows him, bringing his attention forward.
There's our boy.
Through the crowd, Regulus can just pick out Barty Crouch, leaning against his trunk, ankles crossed, smug look on his dark face, and just slightly behind him, a man in ministry robes.
His father sent one of his lackeys again, I see.
It's not like our parents are here waving us off. At least this old man cares enough to send someone.
Yeah, but it bothers Barty more than us.
Lottie daddy issues. So predictable. The pair of you.
Regulus doesn't bother arguing. The train is moving by the time Regulus starts making his way towards the prefect's carriage, leaving his stuff with Evan and Barty, who give him a good amount of grief for the badge now pinned to his chest. He still has no idea what Slughorn or Dumbledore were thinking, giving him this thing. Maybe they want to keep a closer eye on him? Keep him out of trouble? Not that he's ever gotten into much trouble, mind you. That's more Sirius's area of expertise. There's someone standing at the door to the prefect's carriage when Regulus gets there. He slows down, watching her bounce up and down on her tippy toes, peering inside. He knows her, he realizes. She's the Greengrass girl. Cersei. His year.
Deciding whether or not to go in.
That causes her to jump and spin around. She's pretty. Freckles and tawny skin, with the biggest eyes he's ever seen. It all ends up making her look very deer-like.
Sorry, hey, hi, yeah, I have to be honest, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm completely useless. I'm not sure what they expect me to do with this.
She gestures to the pin on her robes. Regulus smiles a little, nodding to his own.
Trust me, I understand.
I think Merlin, I'm not the only one.
He stands next to her, following her gaze through the glass door.
Who's all there?
He's trying to make out the blurry faces.
Everyone. I mean, no one I know, obviously. Well, no one I know. Like, I know of them, but I don't know about them, and they certainly don't know about me. It's a very base level of knowing, you know?
Sure.
He can't decide if her frazzled demeanour is endearing or annoying.
Hey!
Her face lights up suddenly and she smacks his arm.
I just realised. We're partners.
I don't think that's how it...
Honestly, I'm glad it's you. You're scary, don't get me wrong, but I was worried it was going to be Parkinson.
She leans in.
He asked me out in third year and did not take the rejection well.
He's never liked Parkinson.
You think I'm scary?
She nods without hesitating.
Absolutely. Terrifying. You do this whole brooding stare thing and those eyes. But hey, at least you didn't ask me out in third year and then knock over my pumpkin juice and start crying when I turned you down.
No. Well, you don't need to worry about that with me. I'm not really big on dating.
Gosh, me neither. Sounds bloody terrible, doesn't it? My mates are always on me about it, but honestly, having a boy's tongue down their throats hasn't made any of their lives any better.
Regulus has no idea what he's meant to say to that. Still fighting to maintain some level of decorum. If nothing else, this girl sure can paint a vivid picture. She opens her mouth again. Regulus isn't sure if she has an off switch, but it's another voice that cuts across the train.
Well, this is just pathetic.
Severus Snape makes his way towards them, looking every inch the miserable son of a bitch he always does. Maybe even slightly more miserable. He runs them both up and down with great disdain.
I mean, really, you two? There used to be some pride in this house.
Regulus just looks back at him blankly. If there is one person he has no energy for, it's Severus Snape.
I mean, apparently Salazar Slytherin was actually a bit of a hermit who mistrusted the Muggle ritual of regular bathing, so I'm not sure if that's true.
Regulus is not sure what's funnier. The fact that Cersei has apparently memorised information about Salazar Slytherin's grooming habits, or the look on Snape's face. It really is impressive the amount of disdain he's able to fit inside those beady little eyes of his.
Go on then. Surely between the two of you someone can open a door.
Snape gestures impatiently at the door. Regulus rolls his eyes, sliding the door open but purposefully blocking Snape's path as he gestures for Cersei to go in first.
After you.
That causes a smile to spread across her face.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
She slips inside. Regulus is about to follow when Snape reaches out and grabs his arm. His right one, thankfully. It still sends shocks through him though, just different ones. Memories of Lucius hauling him off the ground, grabbing his face, his hair. It's work not to flinch, not to drop Snape's gaze. He hopes the other boy can't feel him shake.
Is it true?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Snape tightens his grip.
Don't play stupid with me, Black. Have you been...
Regulus?
Reg looks back over his shoulder to see Cersei standing a few feet inside, eyes moving between him and Snape, brow arched in question.
Come on.
She nods at the seats behind her.
We're sitting together, right? Partner?
It takes Regulus a minute to realise that she's trying to save him. He blinks, turning back to Snape, who seems similarly surprised, making it easy enough for Regulus to pull himself free.
Yeah.
Regulus straightens out his robes.
Yeah. Coming.
Regulus.
But Reg has already turned his back on Snape, Cersei smiling as he falls into step beside her.
Thanks.
She looks over at him and winks. Regulus doesn't know the head boy and girl. Neither of them are from Slytherin, and both are far too perky for his liking. Far too excited about scheduling.
Professor McGonagall has said she wants patrol teams to be more mixed this year.
The boy, blonde-haired and blue-eyed, is smiling.
That means you won't be running patrols with your housemates.
Wow, rude. Can't split up the dream team.
Cersei nudges him playfully. He arches his brow.
Dream team.
You're right. Too generic. I'll brainstorm some new names and get back to you.
Regulus smiles.
The pairs for the rest of the train ride have already been decided.
The head girl holds up a clipboard.
And the schedule for the next month will be posted in the prefect office after the feast, so make sure you stop by and write down your shifts. Missing shifts is not acceptable, okay, people? Neither's being late. We plan on running a tight ship this year.
Her smile is wide enough that it's starting to feel unsettling.
Okay, so for our first train shift, we have...
Not me. Not me. His arm has started aching, and all he wants to do is go back to his compartment and nap to the sound of Barty and Evans' inane chatter.
Regulus Black and Remus Lupin.
Oh, come on. It's not that bad. Remus is nice.
He turns to Cersei, ignoring the rest of the names.
You're friends with Remus Lupin?
He holds a study group sometimes.
Of course he does.
Okie dokie. That's it for now. I think we really have a good group here, and I'm so excited to get started. Let's have a great year, everybody.
It's work for Regulus not to roll his eyes. Everyone starts getting to their feet and shuffling out the door. He can see Lupin up near the front of the carriage with Lily Evans. The sight of her makes something ugly in Regulus rear its head. He, like everyone else in the school, had a front row seat to James's obsession with her. So yeah, Regulus is jealous, which is stupid and pointless. But unfortunately, when it comes to James Potter, Regulus is plagued with a host of stupid and pointless feelings.
I'll see you later, partner.
Cersei pulls him out of his thoughts as she pats his arm, heading for the door.
You sure do get attached quick, huh? I thought I was scary.
Oh, you are? But I happen to like scary.
He watches her go with a slightly bemused look on his face, certain he has never met a person that he understood less. Eventually, he turns around to see Evans and Lupin making their way towards him. The carriage is still a little crowded, with lingering groups of friends catching up after the summer, which is maybe how Snape doesn't see them as he slides out of his own booth, head down, hair hanging in front of his eyes.
Oh.
Lupin and Snape collide, stumbling back. It's nothing, really. Not until Snape realises who he's run into.
What the hell? Don't fucking touch me.
Snape jumps back, staring at Lupin like he's done a lot more than just casually bump into him. Regulus's eyes bounce between them, trying to figure out what he's missed. But Remus just looks resigned, holding up his hands in surrender.
You ran into me, Snape. You should be more careful, fucking animal.
Okay.
Evans steps between the pair of them, staring Snape down.
You can go now, Severus.
Something complicated contorts Snape's face.
Lily.
Go now.
Behind her, Lupin has gone pale, which also, in Regulus's opinion, seems like a bit of an overreaction. There's a moment where it looks like Snape might actually fight her, a bad move on his part, since Regulus is fairly certain Evans could lay him out flat, but then he steps back.
Really picking sides these days, aren't you, Lily?
If he's expecting those words to wound her, he must be disappointed, because Evans doesn't even flinch.
Pot meet kettle.
I'm just saying, you should be more careful who you hang around with.
Again, the irony of that coming from you.
Fine, or whatever, but I tried to warn you.
He gives Lupin another scathing look before turning on his heel and booking it out of the carriage. There's a flash of something like sadness in Evans's green eyes before she turns back to Lupin.
You all right?
Lupin nods slowly, and then, after a second, seems to wake up, eyes refocusing.
Lily Evans, my hero.
Don't start.
James would be so proud.
Ah yes, my mission in life, to please James Potter.
It's irrational. He knows it is, but part of him wants to rip James's name out of her mouth. Never let it pass her lips again. Lupin looks like he's going to speak, but stops when his eyes find Regulus over Evans' shoulder.
Black.
The red-headed girl turns around.
Lupin.
Wow.
Evans has a slightly mesmerised look on her face as she runs him over.
Sorry, I didn't realise how much you looked like him until now.
He's taller.
I guess that's...
She shoots Lupin a look, clearly uncertain what to do with Regulus.
And funnier.
The two boys share a pointed look before Lupin breaks it to turn to Lily.
You should go. No point hanging around here any longer than you have to.
You're sure you're all right with everything?
There's no doubt in Regulus's mind that he's included in that everything. Lupin gives her a weak smile.
Yeah, I'm all right, Lils.
Okay. See you later.
Remus nods as she starts towards the door.
Regulus.
He's slightly thrown by the use of his first name.
Evans.
Then she's out the door and beyond hearing, leaving just him and Lupin. He looks back at the older boy.
I'm supposed to show you the ropes.
Sounds thrilling.
It's only 2 hours. Let's just get through it.
Regulus nods in agreement. He hasn't the energy to be difficult, and by the looks of it, neither does Lupin. The older boy starts moving and Regulus follows.
So, the train's pretty straightforward.
They exit the carriage.
Basically, you just do laps up and down. Technically, you're allowed to check the compartments, but no one ever does. Unless, you hear someone being murdered or something.
You get a lot of murder attempts on the Hogwarts Express?
You'd be surprised.
Regulus doubts it.
You can dock points, but on the train that's pretty redundant since no one has any. Also, you can't take points from other prefects.
They move to the side as a group of Hufflepuffs pass them. Two of their eyes move from Lupin's face to the floor and back again. The third girl, apparently less shy, waves.
Hey, Remus.
Hey, good summer?
A blush blooms across her face.
Yeah, brilliant. You?
It was alright. Can't complain. I'll see you around, yeah?
Yeah.
Regulus struggles not to roll his eyes as they continue along the carriage.
Hufflepuff outreach part of prefect duties?
Honestly, I have no idea who any of those people were. It's a side effect of being friends with James and Sirius.
He shoots Regulus a look almost immediately after he speaks, but Regulus keeps his expression blank.
Fans, you mean?
I guess.
I expect they're more thrilled about that than you are.
They keep walking, moving into the next car, passing a few more students as they go. More waving happens, though Lupin doesn't stop to talk to any of them. Eventually he speaks again, sounding the whole time like he's not sure if he's supposed to.
I don't think James notices, honestly. Sirius does, though. Plays it up a bit.
Makes sense.
There's an annoying tightness in his chest every time Lupin says James's name. A pain just under his ribs, soft and aching. He finds his hand absent-mindedly rubbing his sternum. He hasn't figured out how he's going to do it, how he's going to end things, what he's going to say. He could always just show him the mark, he supposes. Then there'd be no need to say anything.
James said Rosia attacked his dad. Is that true?
Fucking Evan. It's a blessing, really, that Regulus hadn't been there that night. He's not sure what he would have done. Probably nothing. He probably would have stood back and watched. Added it to the list of things James is never going to forgive him for.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Regulus makes sure to meet Lupin's stare when he says it. to show him the neutral expression on his face. For a moment, he actually thinks he sees disappointment in Lupin's eyes, but then it's gone.
I'm sure James will believe you when you tell him that.
You think he's gullible?
I think he would never lie to you, so he won't expect you to lie to him.
There is an irritating stoic quality to Remus, something unflappable. It makes Regulus want to poke him.
What happened back there with Snape?
Regulus figures that's a good place to start. Almost instantly he feels the older boy tense.
We're not exactly friends.
Lupin looks out the window beside him. It's work for Regulus not to smile. Got you, he thinks.
That was a little more than just not friendly back there. That was fear.
I'm not afraid of Severus Snape.
No. But he's afraid of you.
He sees it again. The jolt of tension that runs through Lupin, the clenching of his jaw.
So afraid that he completely lost control in there, which he doesn't normally do in general, but specifically not in front of Evans.
Still, Lupin says nothing, watching the Scottish countryside roll by like it's the most fascinating fucking thing he's ever seen.
He's scared of you. And you feel bad about it.
I don't feel bad about it.
You do. You didn't enjoy it at all.
Do most people enjoy being frightening?
Oh, come on. If he'd acted that way around my brother, Sirius would have lapped up every second of it.
Yes. Well, some of us have a little more fucking humanity than Sirius bloody Black.
That actually takes Regulus by surprise. The anger. And not directed at Snape. Sirius hurt someone. That's what James said. Someone important.
You and my brother haven't made up then.
Did James tell you?
Regulus can't quite figure out his expression. Fear? Anger? It's one of those. Or both. Normally he'd toy with him a bit more, but he doesn't want to make things difficult for James.
No. Not really. Just that my brother messed up. That he didn't think he could forgive him.
Lupin holds his stare for a moment longer before looking away again.
Well, he's managed that last bit.
Lupin sends him a look like he thinks he's lost it.
Sorry. I just didn't expect us to have anything in common.
We have something in common.
Yeah. We're jealous.
Lupin comes to a stop near the end of the car, facing Regulus properly for the first time.
Jealous of what?
Regulus waves his hand indistinctly in the air.
Of the two of them. James and Sirius. Sirius and James. The names have practically moulded into one. They're said together so often. They... I don't know. Make sense together. You've seen it.
After a moment, Lupin nods.
And you just know that nothing will ever matter to them, as long as they matter to each other.
Regulus feels the familiar barbs of jealousy that have been there since he was 10 years old.
Drives me mental.
You know, sometimes they don't even have to speak. They'll just look at each other and it's like they know. And I want that. I want...
Regulus finds himself wondering what it is that Remus Lupin wants so badly he won't say it out loud.
Hated James for it at first. Being so close to him.
And now?
Now I hate them both. Bloody confusing, honestly.
Lupin gives him an earnest smile, different entirely from every way he's looked at him before.
I know that feeling.
As if worried he's given something away, Lupin wipes his expression clean, standing up a little straighter. Regulus watches as a pair of Ravenclaws pass them, small and murmuring, arms linked. It always surprises him how young the other years look, when really there's so little space between them.
You never told James?
Told him.
There are a lot of things he's never told James, though which of them Lupin knows he hasn't a clue.
What I said to you in the hallway that day.
Oh, no. I didn't.
I can't figure out why. You could have used it against me.
Believe it or not, I don't actually have anything against you.
I threatened to dismember you.
You were protecting him. If anything, I respect it.
You would have come out looking the better for it. James would have been furious with me.
It only would have upset him.
Still would have been in your favor.
I don't really consider James being upset as being in my favor.
I thought maybe you were just doing it to get back at Sirius.
That's fair. But no. Not quite.
Lupin keeps staring at him before eventually giving up, like Regulus is a maths equation he can't puzzle out.
I don't get it. Really, I don't. But he's mad about you. And as hard as it is for me to believe, I think you might actually care about him too.
Is this you giving us your blessing?
No, absolutely not. This is a terrible, bloody idea, and no offense, but I don't like you very much.
The feeling is mutual.
I'm just saying, I am mildly less opposed to it than I was before.
Regulus wants to tell him not to worry. That he'll do the right thing. For once. That he'll put an end to this. Before he hurts James too much. Before he breaks him beyond repair. It would be such a tragedy to dim James Potter's light. But, of course, he doesn't say any of that. He doesn't say anything. Lupin gives him one last look before he starts walking again.
But Merlin help you both when Sirius finds out.
He really wasn't going to go. Wasn't going to meet James in their room. Not tonight. Not any night. It would be better that way. Easier. They'd talk somewhere public. Somewhere that James couldn't make a scene. Somewhere that Regulus couldn't kiss him. Touch him. Couldn't even think about those things. It's done. We're done. We never should have started. But now we're done. He meant to be cold and detached. Meant to be precise. A clean break. Better for the both of them. What is it people are always saying? Rip the plaster off? Something like that. That's what Regulus was going to do. So he doesn't know how he ends up standing inside the door of the come-and-go room, staring at a beaming James Potter and feeling every ounce of his self-control fading away. Stop it, he wants to shout at James, just like on the platform. Stop looking at me like that, like I mean something to you. I shouldn't. I can't. You should have known better. I tried to warn you.
Hi.
Hi.
James is practically bouncing on the balls of his feet, like an overexcited puppy. No one has ever wanted Regulus like this. Honestly, he's not sure anyone has ever wanted him at all. He feels a spark run up his left arm.
Can I?
James holds out his hand. No. No. No.
Yeah.
There's barely a breath between the word leaving his mouth and James pressing into him, pushing him back until he hits the wall behind him. James's mouth on his, hands in his hair, under his shirt, skating over his skin. James is everywhere. He's all-consuming. He's warm and heavy and solid. Regulus is helpless against it. He knew it would be like this. That's why he did what he did. There's no taking it back now. All he has to do is roll up his sleeve and James will leave and never look back. And James will be safe. But Regulus doesn't roll up his sleeve.
Sorry.
James's breath is hot against Regulus's neck.
Too much.
Yes.
No.
Regulus closes his eyes as James moves under his jaw, down to his shoulder, pushing his shirt collar out of the way, lips trailing along his clavicle.
Tell me if you need to tell me to stop.
Regulus's hands sweep up James's back, strong from all the Quidditch, fingers tangling themselves in his hair.
No.
James's mouth is suddenly back on Regulus's, and Regulus tells himself not to think. Just this once. James picks him up and holds him against the wall. It's too much. It's too fast. It shouldn't be happening at all. Regulus knows all of that, but he does nothing to stop it. Because he wants. He wants. And maybe he can have it just this one time. Just for this moment. After that, he'll give James up. He will. He just needs a little bit more. They end up on the bed. They kiss and kiss and kiss. Kissing James has always felt like flying to Regulus. Like it's the thing he was made to do. The only part of his life that doesn't feel like drowning. The problem is, there's always the moment when it gets all messed up. All tangled in everything that came before. He wishes it didn't. He wishes it was simple. Because he wants. Sometimes he wants James so much he thinks he'll die from it. It's too much. It's too fast. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it can hurt this time. Maybe it's supposed to. If it means he gets to have him. If he can pretend a little longer that he belongs to someone.
I think we should have sex.
James kisses the point between his neck and his shoulder. Stop, says the rational part of Regulus's brain. Don't. It's too much. It's too fast.
No, I think we should really, properly have sex.
James stills. After all the movement, the hands and mouths and breath, it feels loud, his stillness. A few seconds pass before James pulls back, sitting up so that he's straddling Reg's hips, his face flushed, hair more mussed than usual.
You mean...
Regulus nods. Too much. Too fast.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
James just keeps looking at him, eyes wide, hands running through his hair. Regulus can see the new tension in his shoulders, in the way he holds himself.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't think I'm ready for that.
And being the self-involved narcissist that he is, Regulus hadn't considered that James would say no. Hadn't considered what this would mean to him.
Oh.
What comes out of his mouth is the wrong thing. He instantly sees the uncertainty flicker across James's face.
Is that okay?
James rubs at the back of his neck the way he does when he gets nervous.
Yes.
Regulus hates his voice sometimes. There's too much black in him. Too much of his mother.
Yes. Yes, it's okay. Of course, it was a stupid thing to ask anyway. I don't even know.
His throat is suddenly dry, anxiety building under his skin. Too much. Too fast. He just wants it to go away. He just wants to be able to do this normal thing. He just wants to pretend for a moment that he's somebody else, somebody that deserves to be here. But he can't, because the memories are always there, a rotting feeling in the pit of his stomach. Too much. Too fast.
Sorry.
He doesn't know what else to say.
Hey, whoa, no, don't be.
James looks at him a little curiously.
Reg, you get to, ask stuff. Ask for the stuff you want.
He doesn't know why that makes something in him ache. It's too hot. It's too much. His arm is fucking killing him and he can't look at James, but he also can't look away. He's so tired of feeling like this.
Is it though?
James breaks the silence, still looking at Regulus like he's not sure what he's seeing.
What you want? I mean, are you ready for...
Regulus doesn't know how to answer that question. No. He never will be. It will always feel like this. Because he's broken. But he just wanted... His hands come up to his face, hiding it from view. And he must be tired or wrecked or something to let the next words come out of his mouth.
I just wanted to be with you.
It's so pathetic. So utterly pathetic. And desperate. And grasping. As though sex would change anything. Would make him feel better about walking away. Would make him feel whole.
Reg, hey, look at me.
He doesn't want to. He doesn't know how to.
Regulus.
No one says his name like James. Like it's worth something. It's a few more seconds before he's able to let his hands fall away from his face, forcing his eyes up to meet the boy still hovering above him.
You have me.
James runs a finger along Regulus's jaw that sends shivers through his whole body.
We have time.
And don't those words just feel like a knife in his side? Regulus doesn't answer. Can't, really, if he's being honest. So he lets James run his gentle fingers along the shapes of his face, his neck, his shoulders. Purposeless touches, more reassurances than anything else. They say, I'm here, but all Regulus can think is, you shouldn't be.
I've never done that before.
Regulus blinks, coming back to himself.
You mean with a boy?
I mean, with anyone.
It isn't that Regulus hasn't guessed that. It's only that sometimes he still forgets. Forgets that there's the James Potter who everyone sees, this larger-than-life, cocky asshole, and then there's the actual James Potter. Just a boy. A boy who loves people more than he probably should.
But you have...
Regulus feels too tight. His chest, his throat.
Yes.
James nods above him.
With the guy you were seeing before?
We weren't seeing each other. Can you...
He taps on James's thigh, which by some miracle seems to be enough for him to understand.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
He slides off, Regulus sitting up, feet planting on the floor at the end of the bed. James is sitting next to him, but Regulus doesn't look at him. Can't right now. He presses the heels of his hands into his eyes, trying to get himself back under control. He's supposed to be better than this.
Reg.
Regulus doesn't know how long they've been sitting in silence.
Yes, sorry.
He pulls himself up straight, finding the posture that was beaten into him throughout his childhood. Blacks don't slouch.
Okay, you really need to stop apologising.
Regulus isn't sure that that's true, that it ever will be. All he feels is regret. He is made of apologies.
We don't...
James starts and stops. Regulus still can't look at him, eyes focused on the hands in his lap.
We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but something is wrong, yeah?
Yeah, something's wrong.
Is it about the guy?
Regulus squeezes his eyes shut. Maybe this is the easiest place to start. To start showing James what's really living inside his skin. How twisted up he is.
He was older.
Okay.
Regulus knows it's his way of letting him know that he's listening, but part of him wishes he wouldn't.
This isn't exactly my proudest moment.
It's okay, Reg.
Isn't. Christ, it isn't.
I was 13 when it started.
Regulus does his best not to flinch.
Sirius was always at yours, even before he left for good. And I was lonely.
Regulus's nails dig into his knees.
I liked it at first. The attention. The looks and the smiles and compliments. I didn't know.
Regulus's whole body is shaking.
I didn't know where it was going until it happened the first time.
The silence is deafening, and Regulus has the intense desire to just disappear inside of himself. He could walk away. James might let him now. I won't even have to show him my arm, he thinks ruefully.
How long did this go on for?
He doesn't want to have this conversation. He doesn't want to think about this at all. It's so much worse than he thought it'd be. Dragging it all up out of the corners he's stuffed it into.
I promise, not while we've been... Nothing since we've been together.
Regulus doesn't know if that's the right answer, but it's the only one he has. Regulus is about ready to crawl out of his skin. People always tell you to talk about things. He doesn't know why. It's never made him feel better. Just like he's been pulled inside out. Exposed.
So, last summer...
Regulus can't make himself look at him.
Listen. It's not... I didn't want it. But I just couldn't see the point in making an enemy in that house. I'm not a very brave person. Not very bold. Guess the Sorting Hat got that bit right.
He rests his elbows on his knees, face in his hands as he tries to breathe. Tries not to look like he's falling apart. Fuck. His stupid arm really fucking hurts, and he knows it's in his head. It has to be. But it keeps getting worse, keeps getting sharper, like it's being burned into his skin all over again. He didn't scream the first time. He wonders if he will now.
Who?
It doesn't matter.
Who fucking... Who was it, Regulus?
Finally, Regulus forces himself to face him, to meet his stare. He's surprised to find James seething. Every muscle in his body looks like it's vibrating with tension, eyes on fire.
Lucius Malfoy, he...
I know who he is. Works with my dad sometimes. He's married to your cousin.
Regulus swallows and nods.
Yes.
They sit there, staring at one another. Regulus doesn't know where they go from here. Nowhere, hisses the voice in his head. Exactly where you were always going.
I'm going to kill him.
And of all the things Regulus could say, don't and stop and no. All he can think is...
Why?
James's face breaks for a second. The anger turning into pain, and Regulus has to look down again. Look away. He hates it.
It's not. It doesn't matter. It's not. It isn't what you think.
What I think?
Regulus has started picking at the duvet.
I told you. I was lonely.
You were 13.
Hardly a child.
He repeats Narcissa's words, though he doesn't make them sound quite as convincing as she did.
Oh, Christ, Regulus.
Don't make this into something it's not.
Something it's not? Regulus, he...
No!
That word lingers around them, like the smoke after a gunshot. And Regulus wants to go back to murderous James, to angry James, anything to get James to stop looking at him like he's an open wound. He tries to shake it off.
I didn't fight him, James.
You were 13.
And then I was 14. It didn't make a difference. I barely even registered that anything was wrong. I let it happen. I always let it happen. So it wasn't...
But he can't finish that sentence. He's never even thought it, really. It would make it all so much harder. To name the things that have happened to him.
Always? What do you mean, always?
Regulus shakes his head, getting off the bed, pacing, considering just walking out the door. He should. He should have never walked in the first place.
I mean always. With all of them. Flint and Snape and...
Snape?
Oh, Regulus knows better than that. But his brain is all scattered, like a stack of papers he can't get in order, that keeps slipping out of his hands.
What the fuck did Snape do?
James is on his feet now too. That look back on his face, like he's about to kill someone with his bare hands.
No, not... I didn't mean...
Regulus's hands run over his face.
He found out about me. About me being...
He can't say that one either, for fear that somehow his mother might magically appear in the middle of the room.
He used it to blackmail me. Get me to do things for him. And I just let him. For years, I just let him. Because that's what I do. That's who I am.
Okay, well, he's also going to die.
No, don't you get it?
Now he's getting angry. It's the kind of angry where his throat is too tight and his eyes too wet.
It's me. I'm the problem. I'm the common denominator here.
He doesn't care, really. He doesn't. He knows who he is. He's always known. He grew up watching Sirius fight and stand his ground. He grew up leaving Sirius behind to face their mother on his own while Regulus hid in his bedroom. He knows who he is.
Regulus? Regulus, look at me.
And so he does. It's a saying. The world stopped. But the world really does stop when he looks at James Potter. The entirety of the universe suddenly holding its breath.
You are not the bad things that have happened to you.
Fuck off.
None of it was your fault, Reg. None of it. I can't even... You didn't deserve it.
Regulus shakes his head, not sure how he's still standing when his legs are shaking this badly.
I did. Can't you see that?
Let him have this. Because if it was his fault, then it doesn't hurt. Then he didn't lose anything, because things never could have been any different. Because no one could have saved him. And if nobody could have, then it doesn't matter that nobody did. Not even Sirius.
I deserved all of it. I deserved it. I deserved it. I deserved it.
Oh, Regulus.
His eyes are wide as he steps forward.
I'm so sorry.
Regulus just shakes his head. He has nothing left. He's wrung out.
I deserved it.
You didn't, Reg.
And Regulus hates him. Even as he stands there, arms open but not coming closer. Because he won't touch Regulus, not until he tells him it's okay. And even though every rational thought in Regulus's head screams no, he feels himself reaching out, pulling James to him, burying his face in his chest, like coming home, warm and safe.
Oh, it's okay.
James rests his chin on the top of Regulus's head, hands stroking slow circles on his back.
It's okay, we're going to be okay.
Regulus doesn't bother correcting him. He doesn't have the energy.
I love you.
Regulus pushes into him further like he's trying to crawl inside his rib cage.
I love you so much.
I wish you didn't.
I know.
James squeezes Regulus tighter.
But I do. I always will.
Christ. Regulus hopes that isn't true. Hopes that one day James Potter forgets all about him. That he goes on and lives his beautiful, perfect life. That he isn't weighed down by everything dark and heavy that sits inside Regulus's skin. James deserves more. Deserves better than that. You could roll up your sleeve. You could let him go now. It would be so easy. Regulus's hands are twisted up in the back of James's shirt and he pulls him closer even though there's no space between them.
I'm gonna protect you, Reg.
I don't need you to protect me.
Well, fuck you, I'm going to anyway.
You can't, Regulus doesn't say. You never could have. It was always too late for me. I was always a lost cause.
And I'll protect you back.
I'll show him the mark. I will. Soon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
How what works?
Regulus pulls away from James enough to speak.
Being with someone.
Another blade in his side. Another ache in his arm. This boy is exhausting. Always tearing down the walls that Regulus has spent years building up. That have kept him together for most of his life.
I hate you.
Yeah, I know that too.
Never been this blue. Never knew the meaning of a heartache. But then again, I never lost a love before. Somewhere down the road, maybe all those years will find some meaning. I just can't think about them now, or live them out anymore. Never lasted so long, no. Through so much or through so many, I just can't believe I could throw it all away.
There's a sort of high that comes from not giving a shit. At least if you do it right. It's almost like a switch in Sirius's brain that he can just flick, and then it's as if nothing matters. What people think, what they want from him. It's better than sex, honestly. The come down's a bitch, though. He used to think he could control it. The switch. It wasn't until last year, until he told Snape about Remus, until he watched the horror wash over James's face, that he realised how stupid that was. To this day, he can't really remember that moment. The moment he decided to blow up his whole life. It certainly hadn't occurred to him that that was what he was doing. It had all just seemed so pointless for a moment. The secrets, the fear. And then it had seemed funny. The idea of Snape face to face with a werewolf. Not a werewolf. His brain corrects itself. Moony. Remus. The boy with the beautiful eyes and the shaggy hair, and the smile that's afraid of itself. That boy. Mine. 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 He hadn't had any of those thoughts that night, though. Hadn't felt any of that ache. He'd been alone for hours by that point, slowly growing more and more numb, until he didn't mind so much that his uncle was dead. That it was probably his fault. It was so like his mother, honestly, to kill someone just to get back at him, just to punish him. He'd stayed alone until he could make himself not feel it anymore. And then Snape had been there, making some crack about Remus being sick, about how frail he was, how pathetic. Sirius could remember laughing at that, because it was funny, honestly, to have Severus Snape calling Remus Lupin weak, when at that very moment he was mere minutes away from turning into a full-fledged monster. Not a monster. Moony. Remus. Mine, 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 mine. In that moment, the only thing that I felt funnier than Snape not knowing what an ass he was making out of himself was Sirius knowing exactly how much of an ass Snape was making out of himself. So he'd told him where to go if he wanted to know why Remus was always so sick. And as he'd watched Snape walk away, he'd felt that familiar high of doing the thing he wasn't supposed to do, of not giving a shit. The come down really is a bitch. It's early. Too early, honestly. No one in their right mind would be up this early, but then, James has always been a little more nuts than people give him credit for, at least in Sirius's opinion. He's sitting in the stands, watching the Gryffindor team finish their first practice since tryouts. They look all right. The holes left behind by Frank and Alice are big, but not insurmountable, and James has been able to find some good new talent. The keeper in particular, a third year, Jeremy or Renly or something, is going to be an absolute star. Sirius can already see it. He watches them land, watches them huddle around James on the ground. Mary's the easiest to pick out even from this distance. Dark hair braided down her back, hip cocked, arms crossed. He can't help but wonder how that's going for James, getting her under control. Mary's a brilliant player and honestly the funniest person Sirius knows, but she'll cause problems just for the hell of it, and she's certainly not afraid to push James around. Sirius tears his eyes away from the ground, grabbing hold of his own broom and heading down to the pitch. Him and James are... honestly, he doesn't really know. They're friendly, he guesses, but even thinking the word makes him scrunch up his face like he's smelt something bad. Him and James have never been friendly before. They were strangers, and then friends, and then brothers. There was no intermediate stage of awkward, polite small talk. Sirius hates it. He gets down to the field just as the team starts breaking up and heading towards the locker rooms. He stays in the shadows of the stands, watching James talk to one of the newer players. Sirius can't hear what he's saying, but he imagines it's some sort of pep talk. James looks fully in his element. This is a big deal, James being captain. It's one of those things he's always talked about, even back in first year. He had so many dreams. Sirius had never met anyone like that before. Someone who knew what they wanted and thought they could get it. He came from a family with very specific requirements. You had your life dictated to you, and you coloured within those lines. The Black family didn't have dreams. They had expectations. James claps the kid on the shoulder, and as the younger boy starts to pull away, Sirius steps forward, trying to pretend he isn't nervous. Because he shouldn't be. Because he never used to be.
Oi! Why go with the bad hair?
James swivels around, confusion soon replaced by a surprised grin.
No, it can't be. Look at you. All up and dressed and it's not even 8 a.m. yet. I've never been so proud.
James wipes a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye.
You're about as funny as the bloody Baron, you know that?
I happen to think the Baron is plenty funny, thank you very much.
I love it when you prove my point.
James shoves Sirius's shoulder playfully before his eyes fall on the broom in his hands. He looks back at Sirius, brow arched in question. Sirius feels his nerves flare up again, but quickly shuts them down. It's such a stupid feeling. Especially here. About this.
I was wondering if you had any energy left for a quick fly.
Sirius feels his heart sink. There never would have been a question before, but he knows that now James is thinking about Remus. How Remus will feel when they walk into breakfast together. How quickly Remus will excuse himself from the table.
You know what? Don't worry about it. Never mind, it's fine.
Sirius starts to turn away.
Hey, no.
Sirius pauses, turning back to him.
Of course I have energy for a fly.
James shoots him a slightly strained smile as he picks up his own broom.
We've got, what, half an hour?
Sirius nods.
Yeah, about. You sure? 'Cause if you're...
Sirius, don't be an idiot. Get on the bloody broom.
James swings his leg over his own broom and kicks off, bringing the first genuine smile to Sirius's face. It feels good. The minute he's off the ground, it feels really good. He didn't touch his broom all summer. Couldn't quite bear it. Every time he looked at it, it was just a reminder of another thing he'd lost. He isn't James. Flying isn't his life. But that doesn't mean he doesn't miss it. That he isn't still gutted that after years of talking about what they were going to do when James made captain, he isn't even there to see it. To be a part of it. They fly a few laps around the pitch, doing dives and flips. Sirius can do this one move that James has never mastered, where he swings down, hanging off his broom by his legs. Technically, it's against regulations. It's not, strictly speaking, safe. And when he tried it in a game, McGonagall benched him. It was worth it, honestly, but it drives James batty that he can't do it.
I just don't understand how you get back up.
James circles around Sirius, who is just settling back onto his broom.
Where does the momentum come from?
A magician never reveals his secrets.
Prick.
Twat.
They both smile. It feels good. It feels normal. Sort of. Almost.
So,
They float lazily in the air, the early morning sky growing brighter around them.
how's the team?
Sirius sees James shift into captain mode, sees the serious look in his eyes, the straightening of his shoulders. That's his best mate right there. Fucking unstoppable.
Really good, actually. It's the most new players since our second year, but so far, they're meshing really well. I think we stand a chance.
You better. If I have to watch Slytherin win again, I swear I'm going to drown myself in the lake.
Sirius ignores the scratchy feeling in his chest when he talks about himself as a spectator. Just another member of the crowd.
Merlin, me too.
James runs a hand through his hair.
They have a solid team, but I think our real competition is Ravenclaw. They have a chip on their shoulders after last year.
Oh, they have a chip. You're the one who had a bludger lodged in your fucking skull. Tell your beaters to give them shit all game. I swear, I'll get up here and do it myself if I have to. Cheating bastards.
James stops moving, looking at Sirius and arching his brow.
What?
You're just sounding a bit bitter, that's all.
Please. Bitter? Moi? Never. I'm sweet as honey.
Sirius smiles with all his teeth.
I just might have also meticulously planned the deaths of every single Ravenclaw player who was on the field that day.
James rolls his eyes.
You know it wasn't all of their faults, right?
Sirius shrugs, unconcerned by this fact.
Guilt by association.
That's not how that works.
We'll see.
James shakes his head.
Think Merlin he won't be playing against them.
James freezes, realising what he's just said, eyes growing wide.
I don't mean... obviously I want you to be... I didn't mean that the way it came out.
Sirius nods stiffly.
Yeah, I got that. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's not true, but he doesn't want James's pity. It won't fix anything. It'll just make him feel like even more of a fuck-up. He hooks his feet under his footrests and lies back on his broom. James brings the smile back to Sirius's face.
Don't know why you do that. It's bloody uncomfortable.
Maybe you're just doing it wrong.
James flies over him, sticking out his tongue before climbing higher in the sky. Sirius watches James do a few flips and barrel turns. Right now, Remus is probably showering. Then he'll try to do some reading before going down to breakfast. He'll have eggs, over easy, on toast, lightly buttered, with some gross mixture of every juice available at the table.
What?
he'd said once when he caught Sirius making a face at his glass.
It's all just fruit anyway.
Of course, Sirius won't be there to see Remus's incredibly predictable morning routine or incredibly gross beverage habits. He doesn't sit with them at meals anymore. One look at Remus's face on the first day back was enough to tell him that he wasn't welcome. So he sits with the girls instead. It's what he did at the end of last year too.
I just want you to know that if you fall asleep and roll off that broom, I'm not going to catch you.
Sirius is still staring up at the sky.
Some best mate you are.
Hey man, I'm just being honest.
Your boy doing alright then?
Sirius cringes. Not because he isn't happy for James, but because he doesn't know how to talk about this. Sirius thinks it's probably good that his current reclined position prevents them from making eye contact.
My boy.
I'm sorry. Does he have a title? Boyfriend? Lover? James bitch?
Definitely that last one.
I thought so.
This has been a new thing with them recently, this stilted air to their conversations, both of them hesitating too often, tiptoeing around one another.
But seriously.
Seriously?
Sirius glares even though he's still not looking at James.
Porter, we've had this discussion. That pun belongs to me and me alone.
Sorry. Forgive me, I forgot. You were saying something?
Well, now I'm feeling way less generous. But I was saying that, you know, whatever you want me to call him, or you, or this thing, whatever you want, just let me know, okay?
They haven't really talked about it since James told him. Too much happened after that. Too much silence. Of course, James is a bit like that in general. Loud and obnoxious about the things that don't matter, and quiet about the things that do. Finally, Sirius pulls himself upright again, getting a bit of a head rush as he sits properly on his broom. He looks over at his best friend, whose face is a knot of emotions Sirius can't seem to untie. He's about to change the subject again when James finally speaks.
Honestly, I don't really have names for any of it.
Sirius nods.
That's fair. Personally, I've never been a big fan of labels.
Yeah.
James rubs the back of his neck, looking distant.
Do Effie and Fleamont know?
Funny. That's the first thing he wanted to know too.
And then James cringes like he's just given too much away. Sirius, who, quite honestly, was never going to like anyone James seriously dated because he's always been bad at sharing, definitely isn't a fan of this guy. Not a fan of the sneaking and lying and secrets. James has never kept anything from Sirius before. At least not that he knows of. And he hates this guy for putting that wedge between them.
He knows them.
Because, well, yes, he respects James's privacy. He is also desperate to figure out who this guy is. James shrugs.
Knows of them, more like.
Ah, that sounds like a pureblood then. Interesting. Certainly narrows it down.
So?
James blinks.
Sorry?
Sirius rolls his eyes.
Do they know?
James continues to stare at him blankly before his brain catches up to him.
Oh, my parents. Merlin, I don't know.
He runs a hand over his face.
Pretty sure my mum does. You know how she is.
Sirius nods, smiling a little. He does. She's brilliant.
We haven't talked about it or anything, but she says things sometimes. I don't know. She doesn't seem to care. My dad? Nah, not a clue. You saw him, though. He's so busy these days.
Sirius likes Fleamont. He's a bit of a nerd, but funny, and kind, and busy. He always has been, as long as Sirius has known him. James doesn't really talk about being bothered by it, but Sirius thinks sometimes he is.
My parents, they've never... I don't know. They've never talked about marriage or heirs or any of that.
James wrinkles his nose.
I know that stuff is, like, important. I know that the Potter name is important. But they've never made me feel like that was something that I had to carry on or plan my life around.
He's looking at Sirius earnestly.
It was different for you.
Sirius blinks, surprised by the question.
Yeah. Yeah, it was different. It's...
He's not even sure where to start. Memories flashing through his head he'd rather not see.
It's everything to them. The family name. You sacrifice yourself to it. And I was...
He can feel it. The ghost of her fingers. On his shoulder. On the back of his neck. Nails digging in. Reminding him that he was owned. She was always touching him like that. Possessively.
Anyway.
He shakes his head, eyes focusing again.
Anything that threatened the line was the root of all evil. That would have included...
Fancying boys.
Yeah.
Sirius bites his lower lip, remembering how it had felt to press against Remus. To hold him properly. The way he hadn't realised he'd been craving. Hadn't let himself think about it.
It would be a kind of corruption to them. Only a black who was deficient in some way, weak or broken, would act against the interest of the family.
That sits between them, and Sirius swears they sink lower, like the words are an anchor, a weight dragging them down. He tries not to think about what came after that kiss. The way the shame and fear had felt so sharp, so real, like claws dragging through his chest, ripping him apart. He tries not to think about the look on Remus's face when he jumped back, when he left. Left him there, alone. It's all so much more complicated than people make it seem. I hate myself, he'd wanted to explain to Remus. I hate myself for doing it, for wanting it, but I don't hate you. I don't hate you for being there. I don't hate you for wanting it too. James has gone pale and Sirius tries to smile, to shake it off.
But hey, it's not like I needed to snog blokes to be deficient in their eyes anyway, right? I mostly ignored all that bullshit.
It's a blatant lie, and he knows that James can tell. That he, more than anyone, knows all the insidious ways that Walburga has managed to stick to Sirius. The ways he hears her voice, and smells her breath, and feels her magic. They're so unimaginative, the insults she whispers in his ear on an almost daily basis. Disappointment. Worthless. Embarrassment. As though he wants to impress her. As though he wants to be something she's proud of. Of course, he knows that part of the reason his mother hates him so much is that she had been proud of him. She'd had a son, first try, provided an heir for the noble House of Black, did her duty. Sirius was supposed to be her crowning achievement, and he had failed her at every turn.
Padfoot.
James brings him back to the present, the sun now almost fully in the sky. He meets James's eyes, kind and warm, the polar opposite of his own.
It really is bullshit, all of it. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Sirius's eyes trail treacherously in the direction of the Whomping Willow.
Remus told me that you know about...
They're just words. When the fuck did he stop being afraid of words?
Me and him.
I do.
Sirius nods, still looking off into the distance.
You haven't said anything about it.
Well, to be fair, it kind of got dropped on me in the middle of everything. But I sort of figured you deserved the chance to tell me yourself. Or, not tell me, if that's what you wanted.
Fucking James.
You already knew, though.
He finally tears his eyes away from the scenery and back to the face of his best mate.
Right? That night you said it was going to break his heart that it was me, out of all of us. You knew.
A complicated expression comes over James's face that Sirius can't quite work out.
Yeah, I knew.
James shrugs.
I saw the way you looked at him.
Sirius is strangling the pain that tries to rear its ugly head inside his chest.
See, that's what bothers me about this whole thing with you.
James arches his brow, so Sirius continues.
I didn't notice. If you've been making heart eyes at someone, I haven't seen it.
You knew I was seeing someone.
Sirius shakes his head.
Only because you came back to the common room with your bloody shirt on inside out. Anyone would have noticed that. But I'm supposed to know you better. This big thing happened to you, and somehow I missed it.
To be fair, I was trying to hide it.
Not the point.
You're not a mind reader, Sirius.
But I'm supposed to be. That's us, isn't it? We see each other.
There's a pause. James's gaze growing fond. It makes him feel guilty. He doesn't deserve it.
You do see me.
I didn't see this.
Sirius throws his hands up in exasperation.
Okay.
James bites his lip.
Honestly, Sirius, of all the things you have to worry about, this is not one of them.
Sirius scrubs at his face before he's able to look at James again.
You thought that you couldn't tell me?
James's eyes get a little sad.
I didn't, really.
You did.
They float there, next to one another, wind gently knocking into them.
It's less that I thought I couldn't, and more that the stakes just felt so high.
What do you mean?
James blows the hair off his sweaty forehead. They'll have to go down soon. They're cutting it close now, and James is still in full Quidditch gear.
I thought you'd be okay with it, but I also knew that if I was wrong, there'd be no coming back from that. And as much as I didn't think you'd react badly, as long as there was a chance...
There wasn't. There was no chance.
A sort of sad half-smile pulls at James's mouth.
I mean, with people there's always a chance.
Sirius narrows his eyes, then reaches across the space between them and smacks James on the back of the head.
Ow! What the hell?
I'm the pessimist.
Sirius points emphatically at his chest.
Me. My job. You don't say shit like that. You're James bloody Potter. You believe in people. All people. Even the shitty ones. Example A.
He gestures to himself. James grumpily rubs at the back of his head.
It's not my job to be optimistic all the time.
Yeah, it is. It's like literally your job.
James arches his brow.
Actually, it's very literally not my job.
Well, it certainly isn't metaphorically your job.
James blinks at him.
I can't tell if it's the head injury or this conversation that's making me feel dizzy.
I barely touched you.
I can feel a bump. Look, feel it.
James tries to move his broom closer, but Sirius instantly backs up.
Ew, no, you're all sweaty and gross.
James glares at him.
You didn't mind a minute ago when you were brutalizing me.
Sirius rolls his eyes.
So dramatic. Besides, I was filled with righteous indignation. Now I'm just wishing you washed your hair a little more. Jesus, James, are you taking grooming tips from Snivellus?
You take that back. I mean it.
James punches him in the arm and Sirius is too busy laughing to dodge it.
Take it back.
All right. Your hair is nothing like Snape's.
Damn right it isn't. Stop smiling.
I can't help it. You're so cute when you get all riled up about your hair.
James shakes his head, trying and failing to keep a straight face. They're no longer sure what they're even laughing at.
Listen, I just want you to know, you can talk to me about this, about him.
The childish joy fades from James's face and he shifts on his broom, looking suddenly uncomfortable.
I told you he doesn't want anyone to know.
Sirius nods.
Understood. But I can still give excellent advice, even if I don't know his name.
Oh, really?
James smirks.
Excellent advice, huh?
Well, clearly you'll need guidance from someone more experienced.
I don't think you have the kind of experience I need.
Sirius shrugs.
Girl, boy, what's the difference, really?
You're not inspiring confidence here.
The real question...
Sirius smiles, leaning forward on his broom.
Is the great James Potter still a virgin?
James blushes, the colour deep and quickly spreading up his neck and over his cheeks.
I'll take that as a yes. Jeez, you two are really taking your time, huh? It's been like, what, a year?
Wow, you know what? I don't think I've ever wanted to have a conversation less than I want to have this one.
Listen, if it's your game that needs work, I can help with that.
James glares.
My game is fine, thank you.
I mean, apparently not.
Well, we can't all be Sirius Black.
Sirius beams.
That's certainly true. But you can always try.
So modest.
One of my best qualities.
James shakes his head, cheeks still bright red.
Listen, I like where we are. Okay?
James has a stupid smile on his face too. Like maybe he means it. like maybe he's happy.
Well, shit. You really like this guy, huh?
James blinks, like he hadn't realised what a stupid, mooning expression he'd been making.
Yeah, a bit.
Sirius nods, giving James a small smile.
I hope he deserves it.
He does.
I doubt it, Sirius can't help but think. Few people deserve James.
But he doesn't want you to talk to your friends about him.
James grimaces.
It's complicated.
It always is.
Serious.
But Sirius holds up his hands in surrender.
Look, I don't know him, so my opinion basically doesn't matter. Just be careful, okay? You deserve someone who isn't afraid to love you back.
James sits there for a moment, a thoughtful expression on his face.
How can you say that to me when you can't say it to yourself?
Sirius shrugs.
Easier to care about other people, I guess.
James looks sad about that, but Sirius doesn't really feel like getting into it.
We should probably head back.
James opens his mouth like he might object, but then closes it again.
Yeah, probably.
It's a quiet descent back to the ground. They do walk into the Great Hall together, but stop a good ways away from where Peter and Remus are sitting. For a minute, the pair of them just stand there, staring.
Well, see you later, I guess.
Sirius tries to appear casual, while simultaneously drinking up the sight of Remus. Despite once again sharing a dorm room, he really doesn't see him much.
You could, sit with us.
James barely manages to stop himself from grimacing.
Nah, mate.
Sirius ignores the ache in his chest.
You're alright. I'm gonna go sit with Evans.
He nods to the redhead a few spots away, who is, surprisingly, eating alone this morning.
Right.
James rubs the back of his neck.
Right, okay, well, see you, I guess.
James takes a few steps towards their friends before turning back.
It was nice this morning.
Sirius smiles.
Second date, you're paying. And if you take me somewhere fancy, I might even put out.
James rolls his eyes, smiling despite himself.
Oh, get fucked, Sirius.
That's the idea. Keep this up and you might actually lose.
Yes, okay, thank you.
James is blushing again.
Just trying to help.
Sirius bites back a smirk. James waves
asshole.
off his words as he turns around and keeps going this time. Sirius pretends that he doesn't feel it like a hook in his gut, the overwhelming sense of being left behind.
Lily, darling, light of my life, how are you?
He's big and showy and obnoxious, sliding into the seat next to her. It's easier this way. To pretend to be this other person. To flick the switch. She looks up from her coursework, a slightly bemused smile on her face.
You're in a good mood today.
I'm always in a good mood.
Sirius reaches over and snags a piece of bacon off her plate.
Oi, serious. Honestly, there's some right there.
Lily points to the full platter in the centre of the table. Sirius shrugs, smiling around his bacon.
Just doesn't taste the same when it's not stolen.
Lily rolls her eyes, very purposefully moving her plate further out of his reach.
So, where is everybody?
Mary and Marlene are napping before class, and Dorcas is doing some kind of extra credit thing with the owls for magical creatures.
Sirius arches his brow.
Extra credit? Jesus, and I thought you were the swan.
Lily elbows him in the ribs.
You know, some of us have interests outside of wreaking havoc and shagging every bird in sight.
Do you?
Sirius frowns.
How sad for you all.
Somehow we manage.
Sirius picks disinterestedly at the food in front of him. He isn't hungry. Rarely is these days, but that happens to him sometimes. His body will just turn off. When he was younger, one of his mother's favourite punishments was starving him. No dinner. Not until you sit up straight. Not until you apologise to your father. Not until you learn some manners. He often wonders if somewhere along the line it became the way he punishes himself too. Sirius and Lily both look down the table to where James is currently standing up in his seat, water spilt all down the front of his white shirt.
Idiot. How long do you reckon it'll take before he remembers he has a wand and can just charm it dry?
After a beat of silence, he looks over at Lily, but her gaze is still very much focused on James.
Evans. Yoo-hoo.
Still nothing. That's when Sirius notices the slightly glazed look in her eyes. No, he thinks. No way. His gaze darts between her and his best mate, who's now being dried by Remus. No way, no way, no way.
Oi!
Lily startles, nearly knocking over her pumpkin juice.
Shit, sorry.
She's flustered as she runs a hand through her hair, speckled cheeks turning bright red.
Enjoying the show?
What? No, what even? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Sirius watches her grab the wrong end of her fork and enthusiastically attempt to start eating her eggs. Like that will somehow convince him that nothing is going on. It's really a testament to her commitment that she doesn't give up after the first try, instead doing her best to make it look as though she meant to use the utensil handle first.
Uh-huh. The universe really is a bitch, huh?
Sirius watches Lily grimace, eyes still trained on her eggs.
The gig is up, Lily. I've seen you ogling him.
I was not ogling.
Sirius gives her a pointed look, refusing to break until eventually she gives up attempting to eat her eggs with the handle of her fork and looks back at him.
Sirius.
Sirius bites his lip.
Lily?
You cannot, under any circumstances, tell anyone.
I feel like I've fallen into some alternate dimension or something. Like, in what world does Lily Evans fancy
Will
James
you keep
Potter?
your voice down?
Ow! Shit! You have pointy toes, Evans.
He reaches down to rub his leg.
Sirius, really, not a soul. Not even as a joke, especially not Mary. Merlin, she'll never let me hear the end of it.
And you think I will?
Ugh, no, not really. But at least I can intimidate you.
You can't. Jesus! Fuck, my poor legs! Are you wearing steel-toe boots or something?
He feels the quickly swelling bump on the top of his shin.
Not a word.
Yes, alright, alright.
Sirius straightens up, Lily watching him warily. There's a brief pause before Sirius can work up the courage to risk another kick.
Why haven't you said anything, though? To him, I mean.
He gestures to James with his chin. Lily collapses back in her seat.
God, I don't know. I've not really accepted it myself, I guess. Plus,
she grimaces.
Over the summer, he said he liked us better as friends.
Ouch.
Lily nods.
Yeah. So, you know.
She wipes a hand over her face.
Anyway, I'm sure it'll pass.
She looks at him as though expecting reassurance. Funny, really, seeing as he's been telling himself the same thing for months.
Yeah, probably. These things do, don't they?
Lily nods again, both of their eyes trailing back to the other end of the table, though Sirius suspects not to the same person. The hours between classes and meals, which used to be Sirius's favourite, have now become a little awkward for him. He finds himself floating around, not really sure where he's supposed to be. He can't hang out with the Marauders, which also means that the common room and library are somewhat off limits. He could, and does, hang out with the girls, but honestly, he can't help but feel he's intruding sometimes. Not unwelcome exactly, but just not wanted, which more or less sums up his entire existence at this point. Unwanted. Sure, Sirius has a great many acquaintances. Some a little more desperate to hang out with him than he'd like, but he can never relax in those settings. He always has to perform. It gets exhausting. Besides, he doesn't like any of them half as much as he likes James, Remus, and Peter. So that's how he finds himself wandering around the castle one evening. How he stumbles on his brother, alone in one of Hogwarts' many courtyards, books and parchment surrounding him, nose practically pressed to the page in front of him. Under normal circumstances, Sirius would ignore him and keep going. But truth be told, he's bored, and lonely, and reckless. So instead of continuing down the hallway like he knows he ought to, he finds himself stepping outside.
Well, what do we have here?
Sirius stops in front of his brother, hands in his pockets. It's after supper, the sky overcast and gloomy. The summer heat still lingers these days, but it's starting to break. Sirius can just feel the start of a cold breeze, autumn poking its head out. Regulus looks up, eyes widening for a second before he pulls a blank expression over his face. They've always been opposites, him and Reg. His brother hides behind dead eyes. Sirius hides behind a smile.
Can I help you with something?
I doubt it.
Regulus continues to stare at him for a few seconds before turning back to his coursework.
All right, then.
Regulus is one of those things that Sirius flips the switch on. One of those things it's easier not to give a shit about. I mean, he's not a thing, technically. Technically, he's a person. But it's easier not to think about him that way. Not to think about him as his actual brother. As the boy who used to crawl into his bed at night and look at Sirius like he could protect him from the monsters. Some days, Sirius thinks the only reason he got into Gryffindor at all is Regulus. It's always easier to be brave for someone else. Reg looks up again.
You're still here.
Sure I am.
Sirius grins, an empty expression. He knows Regulus can see it. Probably the only thing they know about each other anymore is how to spot their masks.
Why?
Complicated question, that. Why?
Something's been bugging me. Since that day on the platform.
It's small, the tensing of Regulus's jaw. But Sirius still catches it.
Oh?
Wanted to make sure your arm was okay.
Sirius nods towards the body part in question. There it is again. Regulus's teeth clenching.
Fine.
Sirius nods, still smiling.
Good. Good. Wouldn't want you to have to sit out your first Quidditch match or anything.
Regulus doesn't reply.
So, let me see it.
See what? My Quidditch match?
If anything, Sirius's smile gets wider, more manic, sharpening at the corners.
Your arm, Reg. Let me see your arm.
His little brother holds his gaze before looking back down.
No.
None of this feels like anything. None of it matters. It's all one big fucking joke.
Nah, come on, Reggie. Show me.
I'd like you to leave now.
I'm sure you would. I mean, listen, I can fight you if you want, but I'd rather we be civil about this.
Regulus looks back up.
I don't have to show you anything.
Sirius could leave it alone. He knows he could, but he's never been very good at that. He reaches out for Regulus's arm, his brother moving just fast enough to pull out of his reach, spilling his books onto the floor as he gets to his feet.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Sirius has the sudden and unwelcome flashback to James saying those exact words, covered in blood, an unconscious Snape thrown over his shoulder. Flick the switch, flick the switch, flick the... Regulus tries to make a grab for his wand, left behind on the bench. Careless of him, but Sirius blocks his path.
Come on, Reg. It's just an arm.
Regulus just stands there, breathing heavy, stone-faced, shaking. It's hard to see at first, but they're closer now. Close enough that Sirius can see the tremors in his brother's hands. And for some reason that's the moment it really hits him. How afraid Regulus is.
Holy shit.
Sirius had been joking. Mostly. He thought he'd been joking.
You really did it, didn't you? You really got it.
Regulus barely flinches.
Go away, Sirius.
Sirius had been suspicious. The way Regulus went down on the platform. Something wasn't right. But he hadn't really let himself think about what it was he was suspicious of. What it would mean to be right. Flick the switch, flick the switch, flick the switch.
I can't believe... Actually, scratch that. This is just like you, isn't it? Tell me, did you thank him after? Get down on the ground and kiss his fucking feet?
Fuck you.
Fuck you right back.
Sirius can see Regulus's eyes dart to the door, making sure they're still alone.
Shy? You won't be able to keep that thing a secret forever, you know.
Regulus doesn't reply.
I bet she was so proud of you. Oh, little Reggie. Such a good boy.
Fuck you.
He hates Regulus. Really. He does. He hates that Regulus looks like him. Hates how much of himself he can see in him. Hates that he used to need him. That having him made that house bearable.
Tell me, Reg, how do you manage to stand without a spine?
Regulus's eyes grow dark.
You have no idea.
I have no idea? I was there, Regulus. I was the one she hated. I was the one who stood in front of you. I let her break me into pieces for years for you. And you never did anything. You can't even save your fucking self.
Sirius is shaking, a vaguely nauseous feeling drifting over him. By and large, he likes to pretend not to remember anything that happened in Grimmauld Place, as though nothing that went on in that house exists in the outside world. He doesn't even talk about it with James, really.
If I could get out, then what the fuck is your excuse?
Don't you get it?
Regulus is all cracked open now. All bleeding eyes and desperate hands, and a mouth that used to say,
I'm scared. I'm so scared, Sirius.
Flick the switch. Isn't this funny? Isn't all of this such a fucking joke?
You got out because of me.
Sirius blinks, surprised enough to forget how angry he is.
What?
They let you walk away because they had me. You really think that if she didn't have a spare, you would have got off that easy? I paid for your freedom. Me. Your life for mine.
Sirius shakes his head, swaying slightly, like he's just been hit.
No, that's not right. They let me go because of the Potters. It had nothing to do with you.
You really think the Potters could have stopped her? You really think they have the power anymore?
Sirius just stares back at him, lost.
You really don't have a clue what it's like out there, do you?
He does. At least, he thought he did.
There's no walking away for me. They're not letting me out of there. Not alive.
Everything suddenly feels very far away. Like Sirius is watching this conversation unfold from somewhere outside his body.
Better to die than to let them have you.
And even though Sirius means it, he does. He instantly regrets it. Regulus looks back at him like he's just been slapped.
Well, must be nice not to be the one who has to make that choice.
He steps around Sirius, who makes no attempt to stop him. Frozen to the spot, mind moving simultaneously too fast and too slow. Regulus waves his wand, gathering his books and papers into his arms.
Reg.
He's surprised when Regulus actually stops, looking back at him over his shoulder.
I didn't want this.
Regulus nods, eyes empty.
Sure you did. You're the hero, Sirius. Congratulations.
That takes the wind out of him. Sirius staggers backwards, collapsing onto the bench as he watches his little brother disappear inside. He presses the heels of his hands into his eyes and tries to breathe. He always thought Regulus was going to be the good one. Thought he could shield him from everything that Sirius had been through. Everything that had made him selfish and callous and cruel. He remembers so vividly, watching Regulus get up in front of the whole school, watching the hat drop onto his head, barely there for a second before it announced Slytherin to the entirety of the Great Hall. And all that he could feel, at 12 years old, was betrayal. That Regulus had chosen them. After everything Sirius had done, he'd still chosen them. And he'd never stopped. From that day on, every time he'd had a choice, Regulus chose them.
I'm scared.
But maybe that wasn't right. Maybe that wasn't what happened at all. Maybe Sirius was the one who gave up first. Because he honestly can't remember the last time he chose Regulus. The last time he stood in front of him. The last time he stood in front of him. The last time he told him he loved him.
I'm so scared, Sirius.
Fuck.
Sirius brings his head between his knees and tries to breathe. Tries not to throw up. He starts going over every interaction he's had with Regulus in the last 5 years. Tries to piece it all together. Convince himself that he knows what really happened. But things are blurry. He's never been very good at telling apart what's real and what's not. Spent too much time imagining parts of his life away, he suspects.
Sirius?
Sirius hears his name but doesn't look up. Doesn't want to. Whoever it is can fuck off. Can't they see he's in the middle of a mental breakdown here?
Hey, Padfoot, are you alright? Pads.
It takes a minute for the voice to cut through all the noise in his head. He blinks up at the uncertain figure in front of him.
Remus.
Remus. Because it absolutely is Remus. Looks thoroughly uncomfortable.
Hi.
Sirius leans back, trying to scrub the emotion out of his face.
Hi.
That's it. That's all they have to say to one another. Sirius is too much of a mess to process any of this, and Remus looks like he's desperately fighting the urge to run away.
You don't have to do this, Remus.
I know that. You okay?
Always.
Always.
Sirius can't read his tone. There's more awkward silence, Sirius gradually pulling himself back together. It's easier with Remus here. Easier to tell what's real. Easier to ground himself.
Well, in that case, I guess I'll go.
Sirius feels his heart jolt, like someone's reached into his chest and tried to pull it out.
Okay.
Remus nods stiffly, making it all the way to the edge of the courtyard before he stops. Sirius watches his shoulders rise and fall, watches him pause just a moment too long. Always one to think things through. Never just moving. Not like Sirius. Every step Remus takes is intentional. Makes it mean more. Sirius arches his brow as the other boy turns around and comes to sit next to him on the bench. A safe distance between them, of course.
I can't just walk away.
Leave it to Remus to sum up everything Sirius wants to hear in one sentence. Sirius just looks at him. They haven't spoken since the day in the broom cupboard, and Sirius feels his skin itch with the closeness, with the sound of his voice. Sirius would speak. It's usually his specialty. Except he doesn't want to do something, anything, that will make Remus go away again. Eventually the other boy looks at him.
You going to tell me what's happened?
Remus is looking at him, and Sirius realizes how spoiled he used to be, when he would get this all the time.
Sirius?
He blinks, waking up.
Sorry,
Sirius scrubs at his face.
Fuck, it was Reg.
Regulus?
Yeah.
Sirius leans forward, elbows on his thighs, hands clasped together.
Remus, should I have stayed?
Stayed?
Grimald.
No. Did Regulus say that? That you should have stayed?
Something warm curls in Sirius's stomach at the indignation in Remus's voice.
No.
Sirius shakes his head.
No, he said that
He tries to hold the memory still, but it shakes in his head just like it shook in real life.
that he paid for my freedom.
Sirius makes himself look at Remus again. His eyes are fierce. They burn so bright, boring into Sirius. Hard to hold. Impossible to let go of.
I left him there.
Remus shakes his head.
You had to get out, Sirius.
I should have taken him with me.
It wasn't exactly planned from what I've heard.
No, that's certainly true. See, you had to agree to get the mark. That really pissed Wahlberger off. She'd been assuming that she could just hold him down and carve it into his skin. Then he'd have no choice. He'd have to behave. Have to fall in line. But it turns out that's not how it works.
I never went back, though.
You couldn't.
I was angry at him.
You had a right to be.
Sirius wipes a hand over his face, thinking about the look in Reg's eyes. He'd never seen him like that before. At least not since they were kids.
Did I?
Sirius, listen, You've done a lot of shitty things in your life, but leaving that house was not one of them. Saving yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's all you can do. And Regulus... I think Regulus is very good at rationalizing things to himself, but you never asked him to be a martyr for you. If that's the role he wants to play, then that's on him.
The night Sirius left, he'd been passed out. He was thrown around and sliced open and crucioed, and eventually he passed out. Regulus had been there for all of it. He always was. Pale and wide-eyed. He hadn't told them to stop. Hadn't come forward when Sirius was too weak to get back up. Sirius hadn't expected him to, but somehow it still hurt when he was proved right. He regained consciousness alone on the dining room table. There were voices in the kitchen. He hadn't paused to think, to come up with a plan. He grabbed his wand and left, bare feet and all. He hadn't thought about Regulus as he cut across the lawn, as he'd hobbled down the pavement. Maybe he should have. He doesn't know.
It's so fucking hard for me to talk to him.
He sits back.
Every time I tell myself I'm going to do it different, that I'm going to handle things better, But then he opens his mouth and I just feel all this anger. It's like
He rubs his eyes.
It's like I love him so much I hate him.
I mean, he is your little brother.
Yeah, I guess. I just wish that life didn't feel so messy, you know? I always end up losing the things that matters. I always get caught up in everything else.
After a while, Remus nods.
Yeah.
They're just watching one another again. The world disappears with Remus. He always takes up so much space. In Sirius's head. His chest.
You've been avoiding me.
Neither of them look away. Sirius shrugs.
I thought that's what you wanted.
It is.
Remus pulls at the sleeves of his jumper.
It is what I want.
Okay.
But Remus's face is all screwed up. Like he isn't happy with that. Like it's not quite right. Eventually he tears his eyes away from Sirius and sinks down low, legs sprawling out in front of him, head resting on the back of the bench.
So do we just do this forever now? Just orbit around each other?
I think that's kind of up to you.
Well, that's bullshit. This isn't my fault. I didn't do it. I don't know why I have to be the one to figure out how to fix it.
Sirius feels his chest squeeze.
But you want to.
What?
Remus turns his head towards him, eyes big and bright. Those eyes will save me, Sirius thinks. Those eyes will carry me home.
You want to fix this? Us?
Remus looks surprised, like he's only just realizing what he said. He licks his lips.
I mean, it's just too hard.
Fixing it?
Remus pinches the bridge of his nose.
No. Being angry at each other. I feel like I can't breathe most of the time.
There are so many things Sirius wants to say, but then there always are when it comes to Remus.
Yeah, me too.
Remus drops his hand, looking about as exhausted as Sirius feels.
What do you need, Mooney? Just tell me what you need me to do.
They're so close. So close to maybe, possibly, getting past this. Sirius can feel it. For the first time in months, no one's crying or yelling. They're not fighting. He just needs Remus to tell him how to pull them all the way over, because he'll do it. He'll do anything. Remus is watching him, a careful look in his eyes. Approach with caution, that's what those eyes say.
Why did you kiss me, Sirius?
It feels as though someone's just slammed Sirius into a wall. His whole body tenses, pulse skyrocketing. He tries not to, but he can't help it. His eyes quickly run the boundaries of the courtyard, making sure they're still alone. He knows Remus sees. It's clear in the disappointment that starts clouding his face.
You deserve someone who isn't afraid to love you back.
He'd said that. He'd meant it too. Looking at Remus, glowing in the dim light of the setting sun, all he can think is beautiful. Remus is always beautiful. Sirius was 11 the first time he thought it. It scared the shit out of him, honestly. The two of them had been lying on Remus's bed, windows open, shirt sleeves half rolled up, ties torn off. He looked over at Remus, and before he could help himself, he just thought, beautiful.
Sirius?
He swallows. He told James that he hadn't listened to his family's bullshit. But he's a liar, among other things.
I don't know.
It's the same answer he's been giving Remus for almost a year.
I don't know why I did it.
There's a beat of stillness. Remus pulls himself upright.
Okay.
Remus.
But the other boy cuts him off with the wave of his hand, getting back to his feet and straightening out his robes.
It's fine, Sirius. I don't know what I was expecting.
Sirius flinches.
Look, you can...
He runs a hand through his blonde hair, making it stick out in little puffs.
You can sit with us.
Sirius's eyes widen.
In the Great Hall?
And classes.
Remus shrugs.
It's fine, okay? I'm tired of trying to pretend I don't see you.
He actually smiles a little then, though it's a sad thing.
It never works anyway.
Sirius swallows.
You're sure?
Yap heads, I'm sure.
He doesn't know what to say to that. Something in his chest starting to swell. To press against his ribs at the idea of being let back in, even slowly. Even just sitting next to him again.
Thank you.
Remus just nods.
I'm heading back to the common room. You coming?
I think I...
Sirius swallows.
I think I'm gonna stay out here for a bit.
Sure.
Sirius can see the flash of concern in Remus's eyes, but he doesn't say anything.
Remus.
For the second time, Remus stops at the edge of the courtyard, turning back to him.
Are we okay now?
Something sad flutters across Remus's face.
No.
That feels like an ice pick to Sirius's heart.
We're just not fighting.
And then he's gone.